Chapter 867. Every time a martial grandmaster came, Master Yu would personally receive them. Wang Sheng did not show up. Wang Sheng knew very well that these musical great-grandmasters were much more difficult to get along with than those great-grandmasters in the Pavilion of Delicacy. Otherwise, they would not be scattered all over the country. If they got angry, their peers would not treat them well. Wang Sheng was not familiar with them. If he bumped into them, he would not be rebutted. Wang Sheng was not that stupid. Master Yu probably knew about his friends' bad tempers, so he did not let them interact with Wang Sheng in the beginning. There is no doubt that these friends were good at musical instruments, but they were all arrogant and looked down on others. Some of them were even worse than Master Yu at that time. Therefore, it was best not to interact with Wang Sheng first to avoid problems. This was the Duke's residence, Wang Sheng's territory. If those people were to speak rudely to Wang Sheng, Master Yu would be in a difficult position. His friends would not be able to get away with it either. If they did not need to use the small theater in the Duke's residence, Master Yu would not have stayed in the Duke's residence to receive these friends. The price of using the royal theater was too high. It was not suitable, so it could only be used in the Duke's residence. Fortunately, when these great grandmasters came, they immediately immersed themselves in the new musical instruments, new music, new notation, and theater effects. They were immersed in it. It was the same for more than 10 people without exception. However, Master Yu did not expect that among the friends who came later, some would have doubts about these things. The target of doubt was Wang Sheng. The song was a good song, and everyone acknowledged it. The piano was indeed an unprecedented musical instrument. After trying it, everyone said it was good. The notation method of the 5-line musical notation was even more wonderful. It could accurately express all the songs that they used to have some general and inaccurate compositions. It was even better on top of that. The problem was that these things were proposed by Wang Sheng. This was worth considering and discussing. If this was something created by Master Yu, these great grandmasters would definitely praise Master Yu to the level of a super grandmaster without a second thought. After all, Master Yu was a master of making musical instruments. Any musical instrument he made would be the best in the world. Therefore, it was not surprising that Master Yu could make a piano. But for it to come from someone who barely knew anything about music, it was a little unusual. By the same token, whether it was a piece of music or a stave notation, these are not things that a barbarian could come up with. Since when did barbarians understand music? Didn't they only know how to draw strange patterns on their faces and bodies, then knock on wood and howl around the bonfire? How dare you call that music? They were all good things, but when Master Yu repeatedly emphasized that it was all thanks to Wang Sheng, the Duke of Everlasting Victory, especially when not only Master Yu, but all the musicians of the Royal Symphony Orchestra were full of praise for Wang Sheng, some people were very unhappy and exploded. He's just a barbarian. Even if he has climbed up a high branch and become the Duke of Everlasting Victory, you don't have to flatter him like this, do you? Master Shan, who was good at playing the flute, came from afar and questioned in a very displeased manner. A few other great grandmasters probably had the same thought. They just didn't say anything for Master Yu's sake. Now that someone jumped out, they were naturally happy to watch a good show. They waited for Master Yu's explanation with a mocking look. Duke Changsheng is a real talent. Master Yu and Master Shan were only friends in the field of music. They didn't have a deep relationship. Master Yu wasn't good at communicating with others. He just made a simple statement and didn't say anything else. But his expression clearly showed that he wasn't joking. We don't believe it. Master Shan was also an extremely conceited musician. He wouldn't argue with Master Yu unless he can prove it. Prove what? Master Yu was very unhappy. It was originally a good thing. He wanted to take care of these friends, but they actually had such thoughts. This made Master Yu very unhappy, very unhappy. It doesn't have to be complicated. Master Shan glanced at his companions, who also had the same thoughts and didn't speak. He then said with a smile, "Invite that Duke Changxing to come and listen to our song. If he can hear any problems with our song, then we'll admit that he has real talent. If he can't tell, sorry, no matter how good the music is, we won't admit that it belongs to him. No matter what, he was an elegant music great grandmaster, not an uncultured peasant. Even if it was a test, Master Shan did it in a genteel manner. Let Duke Chongqing listen to your music? Master Yu almost laughed on the spot. Not only Master Yu, even the musicians of the Royal Symphony Orchestra were waiting to watch a good show. For such a long time, when the whole symphony orchestra practiced, they practiced formally in front of Duke Chongqing and were pointed out by Duke Chongqing. Moreover, when there were so many people performing at the same time, Duke Chongqing could point out the wrong positions and notes one by one. Wouldn't Duke Chongqing be able to tell if it was a few people? Wasn't this a joke? Okay, pick a piece. Without asking for Wang Sheng's permission, Master Yu agreed on behalf of Wang Sheng. Wasn't it just listening to them play a piece? It was too easy. He's familiar with these. Of course, it's easy for him to tell. Master Shan shook his head directly and quickly took out a music score. This is a country song that I wrote down according to the staff notation yesterday. You haven't heard it before. I want to see what he can tell. Master Yu shook his head directly. These people hadn't seen how good Wang Sheng was. Did they really think that Wang Sheng didn't deserve his reputation? He really wanted to see Wang Sheng pointing out their mistakes one by one in front of Wang Sheng. Master Yu had never heard of a new piece before. The others didn't have much contact with each other, so naturally, they hadn't heard of it either. Everyone separated their musical instruments and began to practice separately. When they were familiar with it, they would go to Wang Sheng to verify it. After all, they were all famous musical instrument masters. If their performance was too bad, it would make Wang Sheng look down on them. Therefore, everyone was very focused on practicing. Even if it was for the sake of their pride, they had to practice perfectly and let Duke Chongqing see what a musician at the level of a great master was. They hadn't been here for long. They had just learned the staff and hadn't had time to learn how to integrate spiritual energy into their performance. But that was enough. Everyone wanted to see Wang Sheng's attainments in music and nothing else. In just one day, the group of great masters had practiced this piece thoroughly. They just had to wait for Wang Sheng to verify it. Chapter 868. Was there anything that happened in the Duke's mansion that Wang Sheng didn't know? Even these great grandmasters had a tacit understanding and didn't say anything. However, many of the musicians in the Royal Symphony Orchestra lived in the capital. How could they not know which thigh in the Duke's mansion was the thickest and most worthy of hugging? The few great grandmasters were not convinced by Wang Sheng and wanted to test Wang Sheng's ability. When the news reached Wang Sheng's ears, Wang Sheng just smiled. After Steward Wang rewarded the few musicians who came to report the news, he basically just waited. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that Wang Sheng wanted to put together an orchestra composed entirely of great grandmasters to test the extreme effect of spirit energy oscillation on cultivation, these guys would have been kicked out of the Duke's mansion long ago. But now, these great grandmasters wanted to test Wang Sheng. This was an opportunity. Wang Sheng also knew that if he didn't show some real ability, these people would not be convinced. He could use this opportunity to suppress these guys so that they wouldn't break out in the future. There was another matter that was 100 times more important than these great grandmasters. Old Taoist Ling Su had come out of seclusion. He had been in seclusion for more than 20 days and had finally come out of seclusion. Compared to old Taoist Ling Su, those music great grandmasters who lived in seclusion were nothing in Wang Sheng's eyes. Wang Sheng immediately rushed to the room where old Taoist Ling Su was in seclusion. Not long after, ginseng porridge was quickly sent to old Taoist Ling Su. There wasn't much porridge, only a small bowl. This was specially ordered by Wang Sheng. He hadn't eaten anything for a long time, so he couldn't let old Taoist Ling Su eat too much all at once. Looking at Taoist Ling Su carefully drinking the porridge in small mouthfuls, Wang Sheng could finally put down the worry in his heart. Old Taoist Ling Su seemed to be in good condition. He was hale and hearty, not dispirited. He must have gained something from his closed-door training. It was not until old Taoist Ling Su finished eating and drinking and sat up that Wang Sheng asked with a smile, "How was it?" "I've gained something." Old Taoist Ling Su nodded in satisfaction, then praised, "The kanji is pretty good." Wang Sheng laughed. The fact that old Taoist Ling Su was still in the mood to praise the porridge meant that he must have made great progress. I'll give you a surprise. Come listen to music with me tonight. Wang Sheng invited old Taoist Ling Su. 2 concerts. You'll definitely like it. That song Tao is only suitable for you and me. Don't use it to harm a young Taoist priest in Laojun Temple. Old Taoist Ling Su hurriedly warned when he heard that Wang Sheng invited him to listen to music. Some of the lyrics in Tao were so deviant that even old Taoist Ling Su knew that the song was not suitable for other Taoist priests. He was afraid that Wang Sheng would lead the Taoist priests of the Qing generation astray. It's not that song. You'll know when you get there. Wang Sheng kept him in suspense and did not go into detail. Rest first. Have a good sleep. I'll wake you up when it's time. Back on Earth, when he read novels and watched movies, those peerless masters would immediately become invincible when they came out of closed-door training, killing everything in their path. Unfortunately, that was only in movies and literature. The first thing one did after coming out of closed-door training was not to fight, but to recuperate. Sitting for dozens of days without eating, drinking, or moving was not something an ordinary person could endure. Even Master could not be alive and kicking after being in that state for dozens of days. Old Taoist Ling Su slept in the morning. He slept until it was almost dusk when Wang Sheng woke him up. After drinking some simple ginseng porridge, he went to the small theater with Wang Sheng. Meyer and Rosa were already waiting there, along with a few Taoist priests of the Qing generation. Everyone bowed respectfully when they saw old Taoist Ling Su. The orchestra was no exception. Master Yu led the members of the symphony orchestra to bow to old Taoist Ling Su. There were 2 performances today. One was a normal performance by the Royal Symphony Orchestra, and the other was a performance by the great masters to challenge Wang Sheng. The symphony orchestra was the first to perform. This time was an exception. Therefore, the orchestra members who were not usually qualified to perform in the small theater were allowed to watch from the outside. Seeing Master Yu lead the crowd to bow to old Taoist Ling Su, the great masters who came later all felt strange. After asking, they found out that the seemingly ordinary old Taoist was actually ancestor Ling Xiu of the Laojun Temple. Needless to say, he might be twice as old as them. Even if he didn't know anything, it was necessary to salute him. What's more, his seniority was so high. Although these great masters looked down on everyone, they really knew who they could provoke and who they couldn't. Everyone in the world knew that they couldn't provoke the big forces, and there was definitely a place for the Laojun Temple. Only those who had nothing better to do would provoke the old Taoist Ling Su. Seeing old Taoist Ling Su appear, and hearing that old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng were brothers, some people suddenly felt that they had gone too far before. Duke Changsheng didn't mix in the music circle. Why did they have to deal with him because of an illusory reputation? Wang Sheng didn't care about this. He invited the old Taoist Ling Su to sit in the middle and then invited Master Yu to begin. When the first note sounded, the old Taoist Ling Su instantly felt the powerful spiritual qi oscillation effect and immediately understood what Wang Sheng meant by surprise. Spiritual qi oscillation was very good for cultivation, but more importantly, it had a more outstanding effect on nourishing the body. The old Taoist Ling Su had just come out of seclusion, and he needed this level of nourishment. A complete performance allowed everyone to passively follow and cultivate, and it also allowed the old Taoist Ling Su's body to recover to the greatest extent. This is the surprise you were talking about. The old Taoist Ling Su nodded repeatedly. Very good, very good. How'd you do it? We'll talk about the specifics later. Wang Sheng left the old Taoist Ling Su in suspense, then stood up and gave his comments to the band members, who were looking at him with bright eyes and waiting for their comments. It was the same as before. From left to right, one by one, he pointed out the small flaws in everyone's performance without missing a single one. This time, Wang Sheng was deliberately showing off, and he also wanted to shock those great grandmasters, so he spoke in great detail. He even pointed out some people's irregular movements, which affected the continuity of the performance. As for the use of spiritual qi, his comments were even more detailed. While Wang Sheng was speaking, the faces of the great grandmasters who were listening on the other side had already changed. How could someone who didn't understand music say such wonderful comments? What was even more frightening was that he had listened to everyone's comments for 2 hours, down to the specific notes of each bar of the song. There were so many instruments mixed together. How could he have recognized them? Even some of the self-proclaimed experts could only pick up on some superficial problems. They did not go as deep as what Wang Sheng had said. Weren't they asking to be humiliated by questioning him? Chapter 869. However, the performance was already at this stage, so it was impossible for these great masters to leave. They could only bite the bullet and go on stage, hoping that their excellent performance could make Wang Sheng speechless. Music scores. Wang Sheng knew that Master Shan had composed a new piece. Wang Sheng had never heard of it, but he still asked for all the music scores. Before the performance, Wang Sheng casually looked through the thick stack of music scores for various musical instruments. To outsiders, Wang Sheng was just casually flipping through it. He would pick up a page, place it in front of his eyes, scan it up and down, then put it down and picked up another page. He was very casual, and it even seemed as though he was not very respectful. His attitude made the great masters, who had softened their attitude, harden again. What does he mean? Why didn't he take a good look at the music scores? Why did he just casually glance through them? Don't tell me you don't care about the music we played? Or is it that only the songs that you, Wang Sheng, compose are songs, and the songs that we compose are not? With this feeling, a great master who was about to adjust the guzheng suddenly lost control of his strength. Bang! A string of the guzheng snapped. At this time, Wang Sheng returned the music scores to Master Yu. Hearing the sound of a string snapping, everyone's gaze turned to that direction. I'll change it. There were many members of the symphony orchestra who were perceptive. When they saw the situation, they immediately jumped out to show their support. Not for now. You can change it after the performance. Wang Sheng also glanced in that direction along with everyone's eyes. He immediately refused. This piece doesn't use that string. Everyone was stunned. Then, Master Yu and the great master who played the guzheng carefully recalled the music scores. Indeed, the guzheng and the music scores did not use that string. Changing the string didn't affect the guzheng much at all. The great masters next to them were also knowledgeable. They were all great masters who played musical instruments. How could they only be proficient in one musical instrument? They pondered for a while and agreed that it was true. Immediately, everyone looked at Wang Sheng with a different expression. It had to be said that this was the first time Wang Sheng had come into contact with this piece of music. It took him less than 3 minutes to get the scores for more than 20 instruments. There were more than 200 pages of music, and Wang Sheng had only glanced at each page. He did not look at them at all. So how did he know that the piece did not use that string? Everyone saw how Wang Sheng didn't care about the music scores. Could it be that Wang Sheng had memorized all the music scores with just a casual glance? If that was the case, then Wang Sheng was not only outstanding in music, he was simply a genius. These great masters who immersed themselves in musical instruments every day did not have that kind of ability. Even Master Yu, who was familiar with the music scores, had only gradually familiarized himself with them after working with them for half a day. How could anyone be so familiar with the music scores with just a glance? Wang Sheng knew that these people wanted to measure his ability. Meyer and Rosa also knew that. However, they were not as good-tempered as Wang Sheng. If it wasn't for Wang Sheng holding them back, they would probably have jumped up. Now, the two ladies saw that Wang Sheng had shown such a skill before the performance had even started. He had shocked a few people until they were speechless. Naturally, the comfort in their hearts was indescribable. The smile on their faces could not be stopped. It was just a small interlude. Since that string was not needed, there was naturally no need to waste time changing the strings. When all the great masters were seated, Master Yu still followed the conductor's rules and began to knock on the edge of the music score rack to remind everyone to get ready. As Master Yu waved his arm, a brand new piece of music began to play. This was a folk tune with the style of the southern countryside. It had a regional characteristic. Back then, when Meyer was managing Baoqingyu Hall, she had gone there once and heard a similar tune. Now that she was hearing it again, especially when it was played by a great grandmaster, the feeling was different. Wang Sheng listened very carefully. The transformation from music score to music required a strong imagination. Wang Sheng had enough imagination. At this moment, he was comparing the music he imagined with the real one. It was indeed a piece performed by a great master. It was indeed different. Every one of them had reached the pinnacle of skill. Even if it was just a country tune, it was still very infectious. Old Taoist Ling Su was paying attention to something else. When the great masters performed, they did not integrate spiritual energy into the music. Even so, their exquisite performance skills had already driven the formation in the small theater to emit a faint spiritual energy vibration. This was not the spiritual energy vibration caused by their cultivation. It was the spiritual energy vibration caused by the extreme sound waves of the music. It was pure and without any interference. This made old Taoist Ling Su feel it even more clearly. Everyone listened as if they were intoxicated. A great master was indeed a great master. Even a solo performance of a single instrument could bring a perfect musical experience to the audience. Not to mention the perfect integration of so many great masters under the master's command. It was like listening to heavenly music that they could not stop even if they wanted to. Rural folk songs express the fullness and happiness of the local farmers after a day of hard work, with the joy of harvest embarked on the way home after a day of hard work. The great master's performance was really good. Everyone listened and felt happy with the melody of the music for no reason. In the midst of everyone's reluctance, the piece of music finally came to an end. As the weeping and complaining sound of the flute slowly faded, the whole music came to an end. The audience, whether they were on Wang Sheng's side or the members of the symphony orchestra who were allowed to listen, all fell into a silent silence. It was as if they were enjoying the peace of mind brought by a peaceful night in the countryside. After a while, everyone slowly woke up from this atmosphere, and what followed was a warm round of applause. Master Yu led the performing masters and stood up to salute the applauding audience. The applause became more and more enthusiastic until the masters sat down again. The applause slowly stopped. The great masters also liked the atmosphere just now. The audience applauded to show their love, and the musicians stood up to return the salute. This was the best way for musicians to interact with the audience. It was said that even this rule was set by Duke Changshen. It seemed to be a good feeling. Duke, please comment on the performance just now. Master Yu represented everyone and asked Wang Sheng to comment. Everyone was looking forward to it, especially the performing masters. They wanted to hear professional opinions about their performance from a professional. Wang Sheng stood up and looked at the expectant eyes of the masters. He then cleared his throat and said his overall evaluation. Amazing. Chapter 870. As the saying went, a great grandmaster was a great grandmaster. His level and skills were not something that the Royal Symphony Orchestra's current half-baked players could compare to. Any one of them could easily kill a large number of them in an instant. Even though Wang Sheng had come with the intention of finding faults, he had to admit that a master was a master. Even with Wang Sheng's hearing, he could only hear no more than 10 small flaws in the performance. It could be said to be perfect. As soon as Wang Sheng's evaluation came out, smiles immediately appeared on the faces of the virtuosos. From Wang Sheng's comment on the members of the symphony orchestra just now, they could tell that Wang Sheng really understood and was a true expert. Now that an expert said that it was amazing, it was better than 10,000 ordinary people clapping for 10 minutes. Don't just say nice things. Tell me something real. Master Yu clearly understood Wang Sheng's mindset. He went straight to the point. Although these friends of his had their eyes on the top of their heads, they still admired true experts. If Wang Sheng only praised him, he might not be able to enter the eyes of his friends and satisfy them. All right, then I'll say something unpleasant. Wang Sheng knew the tempers of these artists. If you flattered them, they would think that you had a bad character and would ignore you. He had to bring out some real stuff in order to convince them. Hearing that Wang Sheng was going to comment on the shortcomings of the great grandmasters, Master Yu and the others sat up straight and waited. Even the members of the symphony orchestra obediently quieted down, waiting to hear how far apart they were from these great grandmasters. Judging from a standard of each individual performance, except for two small flaws, everything else can be said to be flawless. Wang Sheng sincerely voiced his opinion. Most of the rest is a matter of teamwork. After all, you all came at different times and haven't had enough time to practice. So, there's still a lack of tacit understanding between you all. After that, Wang Sheng did not ask the masters in detail. He began to talk about the problems of cooperation one by one. These great masters were used to playing alone, so there was still a small problem when it came to understanding the conductor. This was a common problem. Almost everyone had made this mistake, but they were all very skilled. They could instantly sense that something was wrong and immediately fix it. But to Wang Sheng, these problems were intolerable flaws. He pointed them out one by one. Everyone recalled seriously and nodded. These were indeed the mistakes they had made, but they did not expect Wang Sheng to list them out one by one. Wang Sheng also said that this was caused by the lack of cooperation. This was normal. The one who came first had already started to learn how to integrate spirit energy into the music, and the one who came last had just learned the stave. The gap was huge. With such a huge gap, it was already amazing that they could perform at such a high level. Even if Wang Xingning could point out 100 flaws in their cooperation, he could not deny the superb standard of the performance just now. For these martial grandmasters, the problem of cooperation was unavoidable. Wang Sheng pointed them out one by one. Everyone nodded, including Master Shan. Wang Sheng's words made sense. He was a music great master. He was not convinced by Wang Sheng because he had only heard about it before. Now that Wang Sheng had pointed out the problems in front of him, of course he would admit it. As a great master, he had this kind of bearing. After a series of wonderful comments were made one by one, all the masters nodded their heads repeatedly. Seeing this, Master Yu knew that Wang Sheng had passed this test. He was happy for Wang Sheng. Wait, just when everyone was thinking about how to improve, Master Shan suddenly said, "Duke, didn't you say that there were 2 flaws in the performance? Why didn't you say that?" Only then did everyone remember that the first thing Wang Sheng said was that there were 2 small flaws in the performance. After that, he kept talking about the problem of everyone's cooperation. If Master Shan hadn't been thinking about every word Wang Sheng said, he might have been deceived by Wang Sheng. If there are really flaws, tell us, and everyone will be grateful to you. Master Yu also knew that Wang Sheng didn't mention the problem of the performance, which was to save face for everyone. In any case, the problem of cooperation could be said to be a problem for everyone. However, if there was a problem with the performance, it would be the person's problem. No matter who was pointed out, they would probably not be happy. However, Master Yu knew these friends' bad tempers. If there was really a problem, Wang Sheng would be looking down on them if he didn't say it. Therefore, he advised Wang Sheng to say it so that everyone would not be put in a difficult position. Actually, it's not a big problem. Wang Sheng smiled slightly and then said bluntly, "The first problem is actually the guzheng." The master who was responsible for playing the guzheng raised his eyebrows and said nothing. He waited quietly to hear what Wang Sheng had to say. One of the guzheng's strings broke, and there was no replacement. Wang Sheng pointed at the guzheng and said with a wry smile, "I originally thought that there was no need to replace that string since I didn't need to use it. However, I didn't expect the master's playing habit." After that, Wang Sheng made a few gestures. Everyone could tell at a glance that it was a fixed gesture when playing the guzheng. The master is used to having a string over there. Wang Sheng made a gesture of pressing on the guzheng and said, "Even if you don't use that string, the master's hand is used to pressing on the nearby strings at the same time." Suddenly, there was a missing string, so one of your fingers pressed on the empty space. The noise produced by fingers tapping on the guzheng is small, but it mainly affects the fluency of the playing. It could be considered a small flaw. Everyone saw that a string of the guzheng was broken. Now hearing Wang Sheng's explanation, everyone secretly nodded in their hearts. Even a master who was playing the guzheng was the same. He was indeed not used to playing just now, but as a great master, he immediately adjusted. But after all, this was a small flaw. He knew his own business. So the master did not deny it and nodded. This was because of the problem of the instrument, not the fault of the battle, and had little to do with the master. Wang Xing always insisted that if a worker wanted to do a good job, he must first sharpen his tools. The fault of the instrument could not be blamed on the master. What about the other one? Master Shan asked anxiously. He was very eager for Wang Sheng to say it. He wanted to see if Wang Sheng was worthy of his reputation. The other one is you, Master Shan. Wang Sheng smiled and said to Master Shan without hesitation, however, it has nothing to do with your skills. It is also a problem with the instrument. Under everyone's strange gazes, Wang Sheng looked at Master Shan and said with a smile, Master, there should be a very thin needle in your flute. When you play it, it affects the tone of the flute. Chapter 871. Master Shan didn't understand. He took out his flute and pointed at it. Here. Wang Xing nodded and didn't say anything. Everyone looked at Master Shan in confusion. Even Master Shan himself was confused. How could it be possible? Picking up the flute, Master Shan played a few tunes casually. To everyone's ears, there was no problem at all. The flute's timbre was clear. There was no noise at all. Master, you frowned. That's strange. Play another part. It's simple. There was no problem with the flute tunes just now. Master Shan didn't waste any more time. He picked up the flute and played it again. Every one of the great grandmasters present could be said to be a super great grandmaster who was proficient in several musical instruments. How could the timbre of a flute be hidden from their ears? Everyone stopped playing with full attention. They didn't hear anything wrong at all. Everyone's eyes immediately focused on Wang Sheng. I'm not talking about getting worse, but getting better. Wang Sheng smiled at everyone. Master Shan, the timbre of this flute wasn't as good in the past, right? Master Shan looked at Wang Sheng as if he had seen a ghost. He was sure that he would meet Wang Sheng today. He had never seen him before, let alone talked about the flute with Wang Sheng. Not to mention Wang Sheng, even Master Yu and the rest had never talked about the story of his flute. How did Wang Sheng know that the flute's timbre was not good in the past and became better now? Not every performing grandmaster was a grandmaster of making musical instruments. Master Yu was one of a kind. Master Shan was just a grandmaster who played wind instruments, but not a grandmaster who made wind instruments. The timbre of this flute was not good in the past, but he liked the feeling of the flute very much and had been using it with him. He didn't know when the timbre of the flute suddenly became better. Master Shan thought that it was because he had been using it for a long time that led to the birth of a superb flute. Initially, he had planned to treat this as an anecdote and tell everyone about it when the opportunity presented itself. However, after hearing Wang Sheng's words, he realized that it was probably not because he was just playing around. Rather, there was another reason behind it. Was it really because there was a long, thin needle in the flute that Wang Sheng said that caused the timbre to change? Master Shan didn't dare to believe it, nor did he want to believe it. However, Wang Sheng's words were so convincing that he had to believe it. I don't know why it was pierced. Wang Sheng pointed his finger at Master Shan's flute and said, From here to here, there are some slight air disturbances, so the timbre of the flute became clearer. In addition, your flute doesn't even have a diaphragm. It is amazing that you can play it. As soon as Wang Sheng said this, everyone was stunned. Master Yu and the other great masters looked at each other. What was a diaphragm? Master Shan had always been obsessed with the flute, so it was his main musical instrument. Now that he heard that there was something called a diaphragm, he recalled that Master Yu and the others had always said that Wang Sheng had invented a piano and other new musical instruments. At this time, he no longer had any doubts. Looking at his beloved flute in his hand, Master Shan made up his mind. He exerted force in his hand and directly crushed the flute. Everyone only knew what had happened when they heard the sound of it shattering. They looked at Master Shan and Wang Sheng and didn't know what to say for a moment. Master Shan crushed his flute in order to verify whether there was really a slender needle in his flute. Everyone also understood his intentions. They all watched silently, and no one spoke. As Master Shan carefully cut open the flute, a long, thin bamboo needle entered everyone's eyes. No one knew when this bamboo needle had been inserted, but it happened to be inserted at the end of the flute and broke inside. From the looks of it, it had been there for many years. The length and position of the bamboo needle were exactly the same as the position Wang Sheng had just drawn on the flute. It was as if Wang Sheng had seen it with his own eyes. If it weren't for the fact that he was certain that this flute had been with him for many years, and that he had personally witnessed the change in tone from poor to good, Master Shan would have suspected that his flute had been swapped by Wang Sheng and placed in his hands. At this time, Master Shan looked at Wang Sheng as if he had seen a ghost. What kind of hearing was this? Not only could he accurately hear that there was something in the flute, but he could also hear whether it was good or bad. It should be known that this was the first time Wang Sheng had seen Master Shan and this flute. However, Master Shan had been holding it for decades, but he actually didn't know as much as Wang Sheng. Duke, I'm convinced. Master Shan had the temperament of a straightforward artist. Master Shan was full of admiration for Wang Sheng's move. While giving Wang Sheng a thumbs up, he didn't forget to apologize. Previously, I was prejudiced and thought that Duke only had an undeserved reputation. Now I'm convinced. I'm at your disposal. Everyone likes music. We're just learning from each other. There's no need to deal with it. Wang Sheng smiled and waved his hand. As long as these guys were convinced and didn't cause any trouble in the future, that would be the best. At this point, the atmosphere suddenly became harmonious and livelier. Several great masters who had the same thoughts as Master Shan also took the initiative to apologize to Wang Sheng. The atmosphere was even better. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Wang Sheng also took the initiative to invite them to teach at the Royal Academy of Arts. Not only would this greatly promote music and raise the status of all musicians, but it would also bring them generous remuneration and the title of honorary baron. It could be said that they would gain both fame and fortune. Basically, no one could think of any reason to reject it. A few great masters felt that this was not enough to express their apology and insisted that Wang Sheng make another request. In the end, Wang Sheng could only ask everyone to help teach a group of female disciples. The band for the fashion show at the colorful House of Dreams was made up of a group of beauties from the Wang residence who liked music. Although it couldn't be compared to the standard of a symphony orchestra, these great masters could teach them one-on-one. He believed that they would improve greatly. When the time came, a small theater would be built in the Wang residence. This way, they could also use music to cultivate. To this, everyone, including Master Yu, patted their chests and promised that they would train these girls as their personal disciples. This could be considered as repayment for everything that Wang Sheng had done for these people and all the other musicians. In this joyous and harmonious atmosphere, Master Yu and Master Shan finally found an opportunity to ask the question that they had been wanting to ask since the beginning. It was also the question that the other great masters wanted to ask. Duke, what is a flute membrane? Chapter 872. After Master Yu asked this question, Wang Sheng realized that he had never paid attention to the flute before. Could it be that the flute in this world didn't have a flute membrane? The flute on Earth didn't have a flute membrane in the beginning. It was only after a certain dynasty that they began to use flute membranes. In the beginning, flute membranes were made of bamboo or reed membranes. Bamboo membranes were cheap but easy to break, and the sound was not as clear as reed membranes, so reed membranes were better. Later, flute membranes made of artificial materials appeared, which could meet all kinds of requirements. There was a big difference between flute membranes and flute membranes without flute membranes. Some flutes that didn't have flute membranes were called muffled flute. The sound was darker and not bright enough, but it was helpful for practicing the flute's qigong. The flute that Master Shan was using now was a muffled flute without flute membranes. It seemed that the flute in this world hadn't developed to that stage yet. Wang Sheng shook his head and explained the function of flute membranes. Then he saw the eyes of these old men lit up like wolves. If the guitar, piano, and violin were all new musical instruments made by Wang Sheng, then the flute was a traditional musical instrument among traditional musical instruments. Wang Sheng could make new musical instruments, which was very attractive to Master Shan and others. But if Wang Sheng could also modify the original traditional musical instruments, then it would be super attractive to Master Shan and others. Master Shan could be said to be a person who played the flute all his life. How could he bear to hear something like flute membranes? He immediately wanted to go out and get a batch to try. Fortunately, there were always wise people among the group of old men around him, who stopped him one after another. Where could he get a flute membrane in the middle of the night? Wang Sheng threw out the concept of flute membranes and the materials to be used. Then he left with Meier and old Taoist Ling Su, leaving a group of excited instrument great masters who couldn't sleep. Everyone was thinking about how good the flute membrane could be. In the end, even Master Yu couldn't help but ask a woodworking great master to make holes in a flute he had made before. It was impossible to find bamboo film and reed film at night. Not to mention at night, even during the day, it was impossible to find professional bamboo film and reed film if one didn't pick it at a specific time. However, everyone thought of an alternative plan. First, they found a kind of magical beast fascia. It was very thin and tough, so they decided to make do with it first. The Duke's mansion was specially prepared with magical beast meat. Perhaps he could extract some of the fascia and use it. Master Yu relied on his reputation to persuade the servants of the Duke's mansion to find a usable fascia for them. Wang Sheng did not care what Master Yu and the others were doing. Wang Sheng was more interested in what old Taoist Ling Su had comprehended during his seclusion. Last time, the old Taoist listened to 2 songs. To be exact, he only listened to one new song and couldn't wait to go into seclusion. Could it be that going against the traditional Taoist path could make old Taoist Ling Su figure out something? Actually, it's because of the 2 songs, old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng had nothing to hide. The 2 of them could chat deeply and get along well. Of course, the most important thing was that the 2 of them were not the kind of people who were inflexible and followed the rules. If it were a few old Taoists from the Qing generation, they might not dare to change the Taoist Heart Sutra so easily. It was a cultivation method passed down by the ancestors. Even if it had to be changed, it was not something that an ordinary disciple like them could change. It had to be done by a senior expert who was successful in Taoism. At the end of the day, it was more than enough to defend, but not enough to advance. Old Taoist Ling Su did not have these concerns. He was a genius in cultivation and an amazing one at that. He was a super genius who could break through to the 12th stage without anyone's help. His cultivation had long broken through the common sense limit of ordinary people. Therefore, he was not bound by the rules of cultivation at this time. If he had followed the rules, he would not have reached this stage. Wang Sheng was also a person who did not follow the rules. Since the beginning of his cultivation, he had been the one who upgraded his essence soul. He was not bound by any rules. It was inevitable that he would become friends with old Taoist Ling Su despite the difference in age. Your 2 songs suddenly made me realize that I can combine Tai Chi and the Taoist Heart Sutra together. Old Taoist Ling Su talked about his epiphany at that time. Didn't you say that the yin qi in the acupoints was not enough, so the yin and yang were not in balance? If every acupoint was divided into yin and Tai Chi, the Taoist Heart Sutra could be more complete. Tai Chi and Yin Yang are concepts of Taoism, aren't they? Wang Sheng nodded. Tai Chi and Yin Yang were concepts of Taoism. It was a match made in heaven when it was combined with the Taoist Heart Sutra. Did you succeed? Wang Sheng asked curiously. I guess you could say that I succeeded. Old Taoist Ling Su did not avoid Meier, who was like a little bird next to him. He drank the wine she poured and said in a relaxed manner, "But I still face the same problem as you. The yin and yang are not in balance?" Wang Sheng asked with a smile. Yes. Old Taoist Ling Su nodded. Meier, who was next to him, frowned when she heard this. The time is still too short. It's my first time cultivating, and I haven't been able to combine yin and yang perfectly. Old Taoist Ling Su was telling the truth. Give me a few more months. Once I'm familiar with the cultivation, I'll be able to combine yin and yang very soon. Taoist, your cultivation is so high, but the Duke's cultivation isn't as high as yours. When will he be able to combine yin and yang? Mei Er, who was next to him, suddenly interrupted. This kid's cultivation is too low. In his current situation, he has to recover his strength and cultivate to the 8th stage. Old Taoist Ling Su did not worry and answered directly. When he reaches the 8th stage, he can basically achieve the state of yin and yang coexistence. But there's still a long way to go before he can balance yin and yang. If he really wants to combine yin and yang, I'm afraid he'll have to reach the 9th stage. Will there be any effects if the yin and yang are not in balance all the time? Mei Er asked worriedly. What effect can there be? Hasn't she grown up without the yin and yang complementing each other since young? Taoist Ling Su laughed and replied, Oh, is Mei Er in a hurry to get married? Is she afraid that it will affect this kid? These words caused Mei Er's face to turn red, and she didn't even dare to raise her head. However, when old Taoist Ling Su said this, he stroked his beard and pondered carefully. You don't have to worry too much about Mei Er. It's just that the marriage will be delayed a little. With this kid's qualifications, it won't be too late. Old Taoist Ling Su treated it as a joke, but Mei Er listened carefully and remembered it in her heart. Next, when old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng talked about the fusion of yin and yang of Tai Chi and the scripture of Taoism, Mei Er did not listen and found an excuse to leave. This was an internal sect, so it would be inconvenient for outsiders to be around. If they were in a sect that was stricter, silencing them was a small matter. In the practice room of the Duke's mansion, Wang Sheng listened attentively to old Taoist Ling Su's explanation of the fusion of the two techniques for the whole night. Chapter 873. The Tai Chi Taoist scripture that old Taoist Ling Su had comprehended was not as simple as merging Tai Chi with the yin and yang cyclone like Wang Sheng had done. In fact, old Taoist Ling Su had already done that long ago. There was no need for him to go into seclusion. The real Tai Chi Taoist scripture was something that old Taoist Ling Su had gained over 100 years of familiarity with. He had used the concept of Tai Chi and cultivated it in his acupoints to achieve an indescribably terrifying mental cultivation method. The reason why it was indescribable was that old Taoist Ling Su did not have any cultivation method that he could refer to. He did not know how to define its power. Anyway, compared to the authentic Tai Chi Taoist scripture, according to old Taoist Ling Su's description, the efficiency of gathering spiritual energy was at least 4 times higher. Of course, this reverse cultivation was not as simple as cultivating in reverse. Instead, it formed a symmetrical 3-dimensional circulation route on the acupoints. Originally, it was left, but now it was right. Originally, it needed to be left, but now it was right, creating a symmetrical circulation route on the acupoints. Previously, there was only one stream of spiritual energy circulating in front of the acupoints. Now, there were 2 streams divided into yin and yang. Just as the couplet that Wang Sheng had carved said, carrying yin and embracing yang, there is yang within yin and yin within yang. There is me within you and you within me. It perfectly converted all the spiritual qi into yin and yang spiritual qi. When Wang Sheng cultivated, the spiritual energy in the acupoints would also form an alternating yin and yang spiral effect. However, even so, there was still a clear distinction. Yin was yang, and yang was yang. It was still far from the realm of having yang and yin and yang. After old Taoist Ling Su's modifications, the original 81 acupoints of the Heart of Tao canon were no longer enough. Fortunately, old Taoist Ling Su had enough acupoints, one more than what Wang Sheng had now. He took out a portion of his acupoints to make up for some of the parts that were not symmetrical in the circulation of the cultivation technique. The entire cultivation technique required 36 more acupoints, bringing the total to 117. As a result, old Taoist Ling Su would not be able to cultivate Wang Sheng's Taoist canon of tranquility. The Taoist scripture of maintaining tranquility also required 117 acupuncture points, but lost the purity of Taoism. It was far less attractive to old Taoist Ling Su than the Taiji scripture of Tao scripture of maintaining tranquility. In addition, old Taoist Ling Su had actually finished cultivating the heart of tranquility of the scripture of Taoism. The effects of the first and second cultivation of the heart of tranquility had also manifested. If he continued to cultivate it, it would probably take decades. The reason why old Taoist Ling Su was able to integrate Tai Chi and Taoist scripture in just over 20 days was probably due to the mental enhancement effect of mind guarding tranquility cultivation method. Are you planning to practice the Tai Chi Tao scripture in the future? Wang Sheng asked casually after listening to old Taoist Ling Su. In fact, Wang Sheng also knew that this question was unnecessary. The old Taoist had said so much. Was there still a need to say the choice? Yes. Old Taoist Ling Su replied without any hesitation. Then what do you do with the extra acupuncture points? Wang Sheng asked again, is it still the same as before, condensing a few acupoints into an acupoint cluster, which counts as one acupoint cultivation? Yes. Old Taoist Ling Su nodded again, but this time it was not so simple. When I have another breakthrough and am able to open more acupoints, I can add another 49 acupoints to my original 81 acupoints. That way, I will have a total of 130 acupoints. That's exactly one more than I have now. Wang Sheng gave old Taoist Ling Su a big thumbs up. This old Taoist was indeed a peerless genius in the cultivation world. Just the fact that he could cultivate to the 12th stage without anyone's guidance was enough to prove this point. Stay here for a while longer. When the great masters can perform together, I think the effect of the spiritual qi oscillation will be better. Wang Sheng reminded old Taoist Ling Su. Using the rhythm of music to guide cultivation is much easier than cultivating alone. You can give it a try. Also, Qing Ling and the others found something fun. You can ask them when you have time. Of course, the fun thing was that people who practiced the same cultivation method could share their cultivation experience. He believed that if the musicians were all great masters, the effect would be even more outstanding. The Grand Abbey Dean had received the news. It was Wang Sheng who asked an old Taoist of the Qing generation to go back to Laojun Abbey to tell him. The Grand Abbey Dean was probably selecting the disciples suitable for learning music in Laojun Abbey and waiting to send them to the Royal Academy of Arts. Old Taoist Ling Su had drawn out the Taiji Taoist Canon Heart Sutra's meridians in great detail to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng was his junior brother, so it was not a problem to teach it to Wang Sheng. Unfortunately, Wang Sheng's cultivation had not fully recovered. He could only rely on the little person with combat awareness to deduce it. He could not cultivate it himself. After a sleepless night, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su took a nap during the day. Before they could take the initiative to find Master Yu and the band to perform in the small theater, Master Yu brought a group of old men to find them. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su talked about the Tai Chi Taoist scripture for the whole night. Master Yu and the others did not sleep either, but they experimented for the whole night. They tried all the fasciists on the magical beasts in the Duke's mansion. Early in the morning, they urged people to find bamboo membranes and reed membranes for them. Even if the time was not suitable, they had to find some similar substitutes to experiment with first. Wang Sheng had already told them where to open the holes. The size of the holes would affect the tone of the flute. Master Yu was more experienced than Wang Sheng in these things. After one night and one morning, they had already experimented with no less than 100 kinds of materials. Duke, the bamboo and reed membranes you mentioned are not easy to find. Although they can improve the tone, they have a fatal weakness. When Master Yu and the others saw Wang Sheng, they began to talk about the flute membranes. What weakness? Wang Sheng was stunned. He only knew about bamboo membranes, reed membranes, and some artificial materials. If the flute membranes and reed membranes did not work, where would they find artificial materials? When playing, you can't inject spiritual energy. Master Yu said with a bitter face, once you inject spiritual energy, no matter what kind of plant membranes are made of, they will all crack. Wang Sheng was stunned. The flute players on Earth did not have spiritual energy and did not know how to use it. If it was just the breath of an ordinary person, bamboo and reed membranes would be enough. However, if spiritual energy was added, these plant membranes would not be able to withstand it. Wang Sheng had not thought about this problem. Then what should we do? Wang Sheng did not know what to do. Composite materials were definitely not easy to make. However, these old men in front of him were so eager. Where could Wang Sheng find a substitute for them? Then we thought of a way to use the fascious of animals. Seeing that Wang Sheng seemed to be at his wit's end, Master Yu and Master Shan squeezed out more smiles. We tried for the whole morning and found something good. The reason I invited you over was to let you listen to the sound of the modified flute. Chapter 874. Wang Sheng heaved a sigh of relief when he realized that the Grandmasters had already found the right materials. No matter how familiar he was, he would not know better than these Grandmasters who had lived for so long and immersed themselves in musical instruments. It would be great if they could find the right materials. Wang Sheng found the group of martial Grandmasters acting mysteriously, not intending to reveal what the materials were. Wang Sheng found it funny that they wanted to shock him. A group of old kids with an average age of 85 were really easy to satisfy. Perhaps it was because of their pure mentality that they could focus on the world of music and become grandmasters of all kinds of musical instruments. To be honest, the great grandmasters Wang Sheng had met were basically all experts who had been focusing on a certain industry or craft for decades. With the amount of effort they put into their field of expertise, it would be strange if they did not become great grandmasters. Since the grandmasters were interested, Wang Sheng would not let them down. He immediately went to the small theater with the rest. Anyway, they were just listening to the music. There was no need to call too many people. Basically, it was enough for the group of grandmasters to judge. Master Yu carried a cloth bag on his back. Inside the bag were dozens of flutes of various sizes. Wang Sheng's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Every piece of Master Yu's work was probably the best among the flutes. He actually took them all out to show off. Obviously, Master Yu was very satisfied with Wang Sheng's gaze. After spending so much time together, Master Yu had more or less grasped Wang Sheng's character. Needless to say, this kid's first reaction was definitely not how good the sound of the flutes were. Instead, he was weighing the value of the flutes. Master Yu, if you are willing to open a musical instrument shop next to the Royal Academy of Arts, I guarantee that it will be another Qian Xingyuan in the musical instrument world. As expected, the moment Wang Sheng opened his mouth, he talked about things related to money and business. Master Yu was right. Qian Xingyuan of the musical instrument world? Master Yu was stunned. The grandmasters beside him were also stunned. Qian Xingyuan was very famous now. Even people who weren't literate would know that it was the top brand in the world of calligraphy. Not to mention the exquisiteness of those stationary tools. Just the value of those things was enough to make anyone in the world raise their eyebrows. If one were to include those who were truly knowledgeable, it could be said that some of Qian Xingyuan's items had already become the family heirlooms of large clans. How could someone who studied music be illiterate? This was especially so for those who had become martial grandmasters. Even if they had to memorize records, they would still have to write it down. How could they not know Qian Xingyuan's name? If what Wang Sheng said could come true, Qian Xingyuan of the music industry, what kind of glory would that be? When they thought about the possibility of creating a top brand in the music industry, the grandmasters couldn't stay calm anymore. Just from the fact that music could stimulate spirit qi to help cultivation, everyone knew that the rise of music and musicians was only a matter of time. If he could create another Qian Xingyuan in the music industry, it would be enough to leave a good name in the annals of history. Obviously, everyone was tempted. When Wang Sheng saw this, the smile on his face became even wider. This problem could be discussed in the future. They were all masters, so they quickly collected their thoughts and returned to the present. Let's solve the flute membrane first. The first few flutes that were taken out were all made of plant membranes. Among them, the woodworking grandmasters also played a great role. They used their skillful hands to completely peel off the thin membrane on some plants. If it were an ordinary person, they would probably not be able to do this. As soon as the flute was played, the effect was indeed different. The tone instantly became clear and bright. Compared to Master Shan's flute, which had bamboo thorns, the effect was many times better. No wonder Master Yu and the others couldn't sleep for the whole night. Just this tone alone was worth everyone staying up all night. They changed a few more membranes, all of which were plant membranes. The tone was bright and dark, and they all had different tones. The size of the hole also affected the tone. Some were high, while others were low. This made everyone unsure. This way, we can distinguish between a treble flute and a bass flute. A band can't only have a flute with one tone, right? Wang Sheng casually gave a good question about the size of the hole. In fact, it was also the masters who went to a dead end. There was a ready-made example in the Royal Symphony Orchestra. Wasn't that how the violin, viola, cello, and bass were differentiated? It was just that everyone had used the flute for a long time, so they had some inherent thinking and didn't think in that direction. The reminder made everyone's eyes light up again. The problem that they had been arguing about for half a day was solved just like that, which made everyone feel a little ridiculous. If they had known this, they wouldn't have fought so hard before. Next, the flute membrane was changed to animal membranes. According to Master Yu and the others' introduction, the first few were fascias that were peeled from some powerful beasts. The tone was slightly different from plant membranes, but the degree of firmness was thousands of times better. At least when playing with spirit energy, it wouldn't be easily broken. If one didn't look at the tone, the only drawback was that it took a lot of effort to play the flute. Without some cultivation, one couldn't easily play the flute. If one only focused on the tone, it was obvious that these animal membranes were much worse than plant membranes. Looking at the excited faces of Master Yu and the others, Wang Sheng was a little confused. Could it be that they were still concerned about whether or not they could help with cultivation? As musicians, shouldn't sound be the most important thing? Was it necessary for Wang Sheng to judge this? Looking at Wang Sheng's puzzled face, the masters felt very refreshed. They finally got back at Wang Sheng for his previous comment. Since they could make Wang Sheng confused and depressed, it meant that they had achieved their goal. The master's secret complacency made Wang Sheng even more puzzled. Fortunately, the answer was revealed in the next step. This time, Master Shan changed to a new flute and began to play it again. As soon as the flute played, Wang Sheng straightened his body. This was the brightest, roundest, and most perfect tone that Wang Sheng had ever heard. It surpassed all the plant membranes and animal membranes that he had heard before. However, Wang Sheng hadn't seen what kind of membrane it was. This is it. Before Master Shan finished playing, Wang Sheng stood up and pointed at the flute. This is the best tone. What kind of membrane is this? Ha 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 ha. When the group of masters saw Wang Sheng's expression, they immediately laughed happily. They didn't care about their demeanor and image at all. I knew it. Master Yu patted Wang Sheng's shoulder and said with a smile, I had the same feeling when I heard it for the first time. What kind of membrane is this? Wang Sheng asked eagerly. This is the inner wing of a 6-star night cicada. Master Yu didn't keep him in suspense and gave the answer directly. Chapter 875. When Master Yu and the others were looking for a new flute membrane, everyone was also thinking about it, but they didn't know what to choose. The devil beast fascia was strong enough, but the tone was not bright enough. The whole thing was hoarse, and it was very laborious to play. They tested dozens of them, but they were not satisfied. When they tested a kind of fascia, the tone was terrible. One of the masters became a little impatient and muttered, It's not as good as the sound of the insects outside. This sentence gave Master Shan, who was thinking hard, a hint. Insects? That's right. Aren't the parts of some insects that make sounds in their elytra? Can we use the elytra of insects? This gave all the participating masters inspiration. That's right. Since they only needed a layer of membrane to resonate with the flute, wouldn't it be suitable to use the thin wings of some insects? Some of the insects themselves were medicinal ingredients. The few great grandmasters didn't even need to show up themselves. They only needed to inform their servants to immediately send a few winged insects from all the pharmacies in the capital city to Grandmaster Yu and the others in front of the Duke's mansion. They asked a skillful great grandmaster who was good at tanning leather to deal with the translucent inner wings of these insects, and then began to experiment one by one. The results of the experiment were, as the masters had said, the inner wings of several kinds of cicadas were the most suitable. After the leather great grandmaster softened these slightly brittle inner wings, everyone chose among the inner wings of several kinds of cicadas, and finally came to the conclusion that the inner wings of the six-star night cicada were the most perfect. Wang Sheng's performance didn't need anyone to ask about the effect anymore. Everyone laughed happily. It could be said that everyone present had participated in the improvement of the new flute membrane. This was a collective contribution, and also a good anecdote that could be passed down for thousands of years in the future. Everyone laughed very happily. At this point, Wang Sheng no longer had to worry about these great grandmasters having a conflict with him. Such a happy atmosphere had clearly shown that these great grandmasters had temporarily integrated into this team and only needed to slowly get used to it. Following that, Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su spent 5 days cultivating and recovering, waiting for the first performance of the Grandmaster Band. For these musical instrument masters, it only took a day for them to learn all the new scores. Other than that, these great grandmasters were at least 8-stage realm peak top exponents, and the usage of spiritual qi into the performance was not difficult for them at all. They only took 2 days to completely master it. The remaining 2 days were used to train with the team, as well as to cooperate with their comrades and the commander. On the contrary, the progress of the grandmasters in this area was the slowest. After all, most of the time in the past, they had been practicing alone and in groups. This was the first time they were practicing with such a comprehensive orchestra and a proper conductor. Including the time they spent practicing the country tune, they had barely reached the same level as the members of the Royal Symphony Orchestra. If this was a public performance, the standard of the Royal Symphony Orchestra would be sufficient. But who were these people? They were all great grandmasters. How could they be satisfied with such a small achievement? If it were not for the fact that they knew that Wang Sheng could give them perfect guidance, they would probably need to practice for a period of time before going on stage. The audience was still the same as before. Wang Sheng, Mayor, Rosa, old Taoist Ling Su, and a few disciples of the Qing generation. It could be said that these people were the ones Wang Sheng trusted the most. Even Tantai Yao was not qualified to enter this circle. In the small theater, the audience applauded and the band saluted before starting the performance. A great grandmaster was indeed a great grandmaster. His performance was extraordinary. As soon as the sound started, Wang Sheng felt as if his ears were drunk. He was completely intoxicated and could not escape from the beautiful music. Immediately after that, spiritual qi, which was several times purer than when the previous 3 orchestras played, surged out from the surrounding array and instantly enveloped everyone. Even with Wang Sheng's current ears, he could not hear any flaws in the performance of these great grandmasters. Even their breathing, heartbeat, and even their movements were perfectly integrated with the music, making Wang Sheng feel as if they were a part of the music. It was unlike when a Royal Symphony Orchestra played, where Wang Sheng had to block out part of his abnormal hearing. Otherwise, the fine parts would simply be noise, and how could he enjoy the beauty of the music? In the extreme enjoyment of his ears, Wang Sheng did not care about how his spiritual qi circulated spontaneously. He just subconsciously followed the beautiful music and chanted the 4 words of the Buddhist formula of the 9 syllables one by one. It was indescribably smooth. In just the time it took to play 3 pieces in this small theater, a shared spiritual qi mass was formed, just like when the Royal Grand Theater had performed. Countless spiritual qi surged from all directions and engulfed everyone in the small theater. Boom! The spiritual qi of heaven and earth was attracted. The great grandmaster with the lowest cultivation was directly driven by this mellow spiritual qi mass. Coupled with the catalysis of the overall atmosphere, he began the process of spiritual qi tempering. From the peak of the 8th stage, he directly rushed to the legendary stage. This was the first, and the second one was actually Mei, who was beside Wang Sheng. One must know that Mei-Er's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 5th stage. If it was not for the star level of the original spirit limiting the advancement of Mei-Er's cultivation, it was almost time for her to advance. Wang Sheng helped Mei-Er overcome the limitation of the original spirit's advancement. Under this kind of atmosphere, Mei-Er immediately crossed the last hurdle, and her cultivation directly rushed to the 6th stage. Sister Rosa had just advanced to the 7th stage a few days ago. This time, she did not continue to advance, but the benefits she received were quite exciting. Originally, there were more than 20 people who had the effect of heaven and earth reversal. Coupled with the catalysis of the music and the spiritual chi oscillation, they directly advanced a small realm, from the early stage of the 7th stage to the middle stage of the 7th stage, immediately followed by another great grandmaster, who was also at the peak of the 8th stage, rushing to the legendary stage. In the time it took for 4 songs, the cultivation of the 3 people broke through a large realm, which was really unprecedented. But this was not the end. Immediately after, Wang Sheng joined the ranks. When the 4 words of the 9 secret words formula had smoothly used hundreds of combinations, Wang Sheng's body and Wang Sheng's spiritual qi had been pushed to the extreme and naturally began the process of the spiritual qi tempering. The cultivation of old Taoist Ling Su and the few old Taoists of a Qing generation was already high enough, and it was not that easy to break through. But although they did not break through, everyone gained a lot from this atmosphere. Especially the few old Taoists of the Qing generation, they could almost clearly feel the cultivation experience of the others. Chapter 876. Wandering in the ocean of beautiful music, some things were beyond one's control. This was the case for cultivation, breakthroughs, and even playing music. The 2 great masters' breakthroughs and body refinement of spiritual energy did not interrupt the music they were playing. Instead, they relied on their muscle memory and understanding of music to continue playing. What was more amazing was that the instruments in the hands of the 2 great masters were shockingly accurate under such circumstances. There was not a single mistake. Wang Sheng and Mei-Er were both in a state of breakthrough. This time, the movement was too big and the theater was too small. Even Master Yu, who had his back to everyone, realized that something was wrong. Under such circumstances, there was no other way but to continue playing. Interrupting them would definitely harm others and themselves. In fact, even Master Yu was circulating spiritual energy unconsciously. The lineup of great masters and the formation's spiritual energy oscillation were indescribably beneficial to everyone in the small theater. It was a pleasant surprise that his 2 old friends could break through. Among everyone, they had the lowest cultivation. The others had all entered the legendary realm. Although they had broken through in the past few years, they were still true legendary realm experts. 2 of his friends were not, so there was an imbalance in the overall cultivation level and performance level. Now that they had broken through, the whole band would be able to maintain the standard of the legendary realm. Such a band would be top-notch in terms of performance in combat. When they went outside, whether it was those who admired those with high cultivation bases or those who admired artists, they all had to look up to them. All of this was because of the change after Wang Sheng invited him to come out of seclusion. In a good mood, Master Yu once again focused all his attention on the performance in front of him. He was the conductor, and it could be said that he was the ruler of everything here. He had to ensure that everyone was safe before he could stop the music, even if he had to repeat some songs at the end. Old Taoist Ling Su was the happiest. Not only had Wang Sheng used a full great master lineup to verify the spiritual energy oscillation that he had discovered earlier, but he had also integrated this spiritual energy oscillation into his cultivation. Being in such a vortex of spiritual energy, old Taoist Ling Su's 20-odd days of closed-door cultivation was replenished in one go with the music. He no longer needed to spend more time recuperating slowly. Not only that, because old Taoist Ling Su had just cultivated the Tai Chi Dao canopy and was not familiar with it, He was unable to completely achieve the state of yin and yang complementing each other. He still needed a period of cultivation to be able to straighten out his aura and slowly achieve the balance of yin and yang. Of course, this was according to the general process, but after listening to a concert here today, everything changed. The loss was made up, and the Tai Chi Taoist Sutra flowed smoothly. It was twice as smooth as old Taoist Ling Su's. What made old Taoist Ling Su even happier was that the huge mass of spiritual energy was crazily pouring into his body, causing the yin and yang balance that he would need at least 3 months to achieve. Now, along with the performance of the music and the rotation of the spiritual energy, the gap between yin and yang was shrinking bit by bit, restoring the balance. Looking at this speed, everything would be perfect as long as the performance could last for another 2 hours. Old Taoist Ling Su sank down and felt the familiar cultivation experience of the Tai Chi Taoist Sutra in the mass of spiritual energy. He knew that it was the cultivation understanding of the disciples of the Qing generation. Only those who had cultivated the Tai Chi Taoist Sutra for at least 20 years could feel it. Wang Sheng could not do it now, but old Taoist Ling Su could definitely do it. This was something that surprised old Taoist Ling Su. The Tai Chi Taoist Sutra only needed to cultivate a group of music experts of this level for the Laojun Temple. In the future, the cultivation of the disciples of the Laojun Temple would be many times more efficient than others. Old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was much higher than others, so he could perceive things that others could not. For example, because of the harmony between the formation of the small theater and the performance of the music, the people in the small theater and the theater itself had actually merged into one. This was also why the theater could be used as a unit to mobilize the surrounding spiritual energy. However, it could not be integrated at the beginning. It needed to be played a few songs and slowly integrated the harmonious temperament to achieve such an effect. Therefore, after the performance was over, he could discuss with Wang Sheng which songs would be the best combination to trigger this effect. Wang Sheng was also enjoying the wonderful feeling of breaking through. What was even more wonderful was that Mayer, who was next to him, had been holding his hand. The two of them were enjoying the wonderful feeling of the spiritual energy tempering their bodies at the same time. For a moment, there seemed to be a little spiritual connection, and it was extremely pleasant. At the same time, Wang Sheng enjoyed the music more than the others. It was not just the great masters who were playing the music now, but the great masters and the music had merged into one. This feeling was even more wonderful than at the beginning. It was as if the ears were drinking wine. The wine did not intoxicate them, but they were intoxicated. Different from the musicians in the band who were intoxicated by the music, Wang Sheng kept a clear mind because he kept using the forward formula of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. This sobriety was even more detached than Master Yu's as a conductor. It was like a person who was in the middle of a game. His heart was moving according to the music, and his mind was wandering outside of it. However, he felt like an outsider. The band was already at the end of the performance. If they did not want to be interrupted, Master Yu would probably have to repeat the performance. Just as Wang Sheng was thinking about this, Master Yu only said one sentence at the end of the performance, and the great masters immediately continued to play. Wang Sheng heard it clearly. It was Master Shan's country folk song. The mood of the folk song was fulfilling and happy. It was only good for cultivation and not bad. Wang Sheng continued to appreciate it. Other than actively using the forward formula, he did not care about anything else. He let the mass of spiritual energy take control of everything else. The country folk song was not very long. It only lasted for a few minutes. Then, Wang Sheng was surprised to find that Master Yu had started to play Sui Yuan under the direction of everyone. From the looks of it, these grandmasters had practiced all of Wang Sheng's songs. However, what surprised him more was not the music, but the old Taoist Ling Su. He actually started to sing along with the music of Sui Yuan. When he sang, the old Taoist understanding of Taoism and Tai Chi naturally mixed with the effect of the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. The whole mass of spiritual energy suddenly became extremely pure because of the old Taoist. Countless impure spiritual energy was expelled, and everyone felt even more refreshed. Then, Wang Sheng heard the prelude of Tao and old Taoist Ling Su's sudden and hearty singing. Chapter 877. In all fairness, old Taoist Ling Su's voice was not very good. However, when he sang the song with that hoarse voice of an old man who had seen through the ways of the world, it really fit the mood of the song. When Wang Sheng sang, he had to drink a lot of alcohol and imitate old heretic Huang on earth in order to sing the song with that kind of desolation. However, old Taoist Ling Su just sang it so casually, and the effect was much better than when Wang Sheng had drunk alcohol. Listening to old Taoist Ling Su completely open his heart and sing the so-called rebellious song, Wang Sheng could not help but laugh as he felt the automatic flow of spiritual energy in his body. Old Taoist Ling Su had also warned Wang Sheng not to sing this song in front of the young Taoists of the Qing generation, for fear that they would learn bad things. In the end, he sang it in front of them. Fortunately, everyone, including the musicians, was actually controlled by the music. Only Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were clear-headed. Perhaps they did not hear the lyrics at all. Who knew? In the process of old Taoist Ling Su singing, there was indeed a surge of Ling Qi that was different from the previous calm and tranquil Ling Su's singing. However, this Ling Qi was like a lotus root that had just emerged from the mud, untainted by even a speck of dust, completely out of place with the surroundings. It did not dissipate into the spiritual energy mass, nor did it absorb spiritual energy to strengthen itself. It was like a fish swimming in the spiritual energy mass. After swimming for a while, the spiritual energy seemed to have found an exit and suddenly rushed in one direction. Wang Sheng had only been paying attention to the movement of the spiritual energy out of curiosity. He did not expect that the spiritual energy would directly find him. At that moment, Wang Sheng was in the midst of tempering his body with spiritual energy. It was impossible for him to leave this spiritual energy mass. Then he felt the spiritual energy of old Taoist Ling Su rush into his body along the path of tempering his body. Hong, the spiritual qi that rushed and was like a ball of fire, directly igniting all the spiritual qi in Wang Sheng's body. Starting from Wang Sheng's first chakra, an extremely powerful pure yang qi followed the path of the scripture of Tao Canon of Tranquility and lit up every chakra. He didn't stop when he reached the last acupoint on the route. Instead, he ignited the remaining acupoints that weren't in use, and then slowly integrated them into the flowing spiritual energy. There was only one aura, but it contained the pure yang spiritual energy that old Taoist Ling Su had cultivated for his entire life. After Wang Sheng's spiritual energy was ignited, his body felt like it was on fire. In the blink of an eye, Wang Sheng's entire body began to turn red. Ever since Wang Sheng started cultivating, he had never encountered such a painful situation. He couldn't help but curse old Taoist Ling Su in his heart. Then, without caring about anything else, he continuously used the four-word formula on his body to help suppress the spiritual energy that was about to go out of control. His body also instinctively absorbed more spiritual energy from the outside world in an attempt to neutralize the burning spiritual energy. A huge amount of spiritual energy was frantically absorbed by Wang Sheng from the spiritual energy mass, bringing a wave of coolness to his body. Wang Sheng finally felt a little better. At least in his body, this pure yang spiritual energy could still be diluted by a large amount of spiritual energy. As long as there was a way, it would be fine. After that, Wang Sheng no longer paid attention to old Taoist Ling Su. He frantically used the 9 words of Buddhist incantation to keep his mind clear and the speed at which his body absorbed spiritual energy. He frantically absorbed spiritual energy from the outside world to ease the burning sensation in his body. Fortunately, The old Taoist Ling Su only released a small amount of spiritual energy absent-mindedly. It didn't take long for the song to finish. Master Yu did not continue to repeat the song. Instead, he repeated it from the beginning, giving Wang Sheng a chance to catch his breath. Fortunately, the spiritual energy caused by the breakthrough of the four people had triggered a large amount of spiritual energy from heaven and earth. Moreover, the lineup of the great Grandmaster Orchestra had smoothed out the surrounding spiritual energy very smoothly. This allowed Wang Sheng to have an almost endless supply of spiritual energy to extinguish the fire in his body. Of course, the most fortunate thing was that among the four people who had broken through, two of them had broken through from the 8th stage to the legendary realm. They had triggered the spiritual energy to temper their bodies for more than 20 hours. The triggered spiritual energy was even more endless, giving Wang Sheng enough time to suppress the kindling in his body. Master Yu did not know how many times he had cycled the song. Perhaps it was because old Taoist Ling Su's participation during the first performance of Tao, which made Master Yu feel that the song was not perfectly integrated. Therefore, Master Yu did not play that song for the next few cycles. Old Taoist Ling Su also did not have the chance to display his singing voice again, nor did he release his pure yang spiritual energy again. The abnormality on Wang Sheng's side was obvious. Old Taoist Ling Su could feel it. In fact, he knew something was wrong the moment he released the spiritual energy. However, at that time, he could no longer control it. He could only watch helplessly as the pure yang spiritual energy rushed into Wang Sheng's body. Feeling the spiritual energy entering Wang Sheng's body, old Taoist Ling Su heaved a sigh of relief. There were so many people here. If that spiritual energy had entered the body of anyone other than Wang Sheng, it would probably have caused a disaster. The pure yang spiritual energy that was stimulated by the music performed by nearly 30 great grandmasters in the 12th stage was not something that anyone present could withstand. If that person was not Wang Sheng, then there would only be one outcome for the person who was invaded by the spiritual energy, and that was an instant death. Then, it would trigger a series of chain reactions. In the best-case scenario, old Taoist Ling Su would be the only one left alive in the small theater. In the worst-case scenario, old Taoist Ling Su would still be alive, but the entire Duke's mansion would turn into a powder like hell. Although the entire band was made up of great grandmasters, and all of them were in the legendary realm, and the few young Taoists of the Qing generation were also at the peak of the legendary realm, the pure yang spiritual energy of old Taoist Ling Su had triggered the explosion of the spiritual energy in the entire small theater. With the addition of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as well as everyone's spiritual energy, the attack power was probably dozens of times more terrifying than old Taoist Ling Su's attack. The fact that old Taoist Ling Su was able to survive was definitely due to his superior cultivation. Thank goodness. Fortunately, the artistic conception of the song Tao was something that only Wang Sheng could accept. Therefore, the spiritual energy did not go to anyone else. Instead, it went directly into Wang Sheng's body, which prevented the terrible consequences from happening. Even so, it seemed that Wang Sheng was not having an easy time. The expression on his face was one of extreme pain. But fortunately, that was all. It wasn't serious to the point where his body would explode. Only Wang Sheng, the composer of the song, could barely withstand the power that was stimulated by that kind of rebellious music. Following that, old Taoist Ling Su did not dare to play around anymore. He immersed himself in the process and used the 9 words incantation to maintain the purity of the entire ball of spirit qi, maintaining the balance of the entire ball of spirit qi. Then, he waited for everyone to complete their breakthrough. Chapter 878. The breakthrough took more than a day. Although Wang Sheng and Mayer, the two people who could make decisions in the Duke's mansion, were inside, the people outside did not panic. It was no longer a legend that someone had broken through during the performance at the Royal Theatre. It was something that the Duke had done. How could the people in the Duke's mansion not know? From the looks of it, It was obvious that someone was making a breakthrough. The music did not stop, and the formation was still running. What did this mean? There was no need to ask. Someone must have broken through. The benefits were great. As long as they were in the small theater, everyone would have a share. If someone dared to rush in and disturb the performance, they would definitely be torn into pieces. Steward Wang did a good job on this point. He ordered the guards from the Temple of Laojun to surround the small theater. No one was allowed to get close within a radius of 60 meters. Not only was there Wang Sheng, but there was also old Taoist Ling Su and several old Taoists of the Qing generation. Wouldn't the guards from the Temple of Laojun protect them with their lives? Finally, on the second night, everything stopped. The music stopped, and there was no more spiritual energy gathering in the small theater. The people outside heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su also heaved a sigh of relief. The others did not notice what had happened. The only person who might have felt it was Master Yu. He just felt that the song did not match the others, so he stopped playing it. Everyone was very happy. The two great grandmasters who had broken through during the performance were very happy. They were no longer at the peak of the 8th stage. They had truly entered the legendary realm. In other words, this band was a pure great grandmaster band in the legendary realm. At the same time, these great masters had collectively created a record. That was, they had unconsciously cooperated with each other for more than 20 hours. This was something that had never happened before. Although they didn't seem to be conscious during the collaboration, they all remembered exactly what happened to them during the performance. This was equivalent to them training together for more than 20 hours. Moreover, they were in a state of selflessness. These 20 hours were equivalent to a month of training together, or even longer. The level of their performance suddenly reached the level of proficiency and cooperation. This was much better than the previous 5 days of hurriedly practicing. However, there were also repercussions. If it were anyone else, they would be so tired that they wouldn't even be able to lift their fingers after playing for more than 20 hours without rest. Even though it was just playing a musical instrument, it was a physically exhausting task. Coupled with the mental exhaustion, even Master Yu, the conductor, was so tired that he could barely lift his arms. When he was performing, he was enveloped in spiritual energy, so he didn't feel any discomfort. However, once he stopped, he felt like he was going to die. This was a group of old men with an average age of more than 80. They had relied on their powerful cultivation to survive until now. After the performance, they did not even have the strength to stand up. The old Taoist priests of the Qing generation also benefited greatly. With the performance of all the great grandmasters, they had once again confirmed the discovery that they could practice together. Coupled with the addition of old Taoist Ling Su's hundreds of years of experience in Daozong mantra cultivation, their understanding of Daozong mantra went up another level. The benefits of this were immense. This allowed the old Taoist priests of the Qing generation to be at the forefront of the Qing generation in terms of understanding of Daozong mantra. Even the old Taoist priests in the land of Thousand Despair might not be able to catch up with them. Mayer took advantage of the fact that 2 8th-stage experts had broken through to spiritual energy body tempering, and she also had a breakthrough. The duration of spiritual energy body tempering was the same as that of an 8th-stage expert. From the beginning to the end, the instability of the realm caused by the breakthrough was completely compensated for by the long duration of spiritual energy body tempering. The most important thing was that she had successfully turned her 5-star phantom spiritual fox into a celestial fox. Even though she was just an ordinary one-tailed heavenly fox, the possibility of a breakthrough meant that the future that Wang Sheng had told her about was now within her reach. It was no longer a castle in the sky, that she could only rely on her trust in Wang Sheng to persevere. This leap was even more significant than a simple breakthrough in cultivation. This also made Mayer realize that she was no longer the beautiful girl who could only rely on her business talent and beauty to keep up with Wang Sheng. In the near future, Mayer would also be able to become a super expert who surpassed the legendary realm. At this moment, The wise and confident look on Mayer's face had fully explained everything. Rosa had also gained a lot. With the help of the spiritual energy ball that old Taoist Ling Su had purified, Sister Rosa's cultivation had broken through to the early stage of the 7th stage. After more than 30 hours of spiritual energy body tempering, she had broken through a small realm in the last half an hour and reached the late stage of the 7th stage. As long as Sister Rosa could work a little harder to consolidate her cultivation, she would be able to become an expert in the late stage of the 7th stage. Old Taoist Ling Su had also gained a lot. He had verified many things, especially the Tai Chi scripture. More than 30 hours of spiritual energy body tempering had not only completely made up for the loss of his closed-door cultivation, but had also taken the opportunity to hone the Tai Chi scripture. At the same time, he had reached the realm of yin and yang balance that could only be achieved after a few months. The last one left was Wang Sheng. Speaking of gains, Wang Sheng had a course, and the gains were definitely not small. Advancing from a 4th stage to the 5th stage was the most direct gain. The spiritual energy body tempering was similar to that of Mayer. It took a lot longer, and he had absorbed a lot more spiritual energy. He had practiced thousands of combinations of the 4-word formula. He had almost practiced all the combinations of the 4-word formula once and could study the 5-word formula immediately. The acupuncture point felt like it had expanded from a softball to a rattan ball. It was a full circle, and the storage of spiritual energy had increased by more than 10 times. In the pool in the soul origin space, the pure spiritual energy body tempering had covered the entire bottom of the pool. Although it was only a shallow layer, it was already 10 times more than the previous 2 advancements combined. The only problem was that the spiritual energy in the acupuncture point had been ignited by old Taoist Ling Su's pure yang spiritual energy. As a result, he had to rely on the huge amount of spiritual energy to dilute and neutralize the old Taoist's powerful spiritual energy in the later stages. Fortunately, the time was long enough, and Wang Sheng had used the 9 secret words formula hard enough to barely hold on. However, the overall spiritual qi had become almost pure yang. The bit of yin qi absorbed from Sister Rosa's body had become negligible. Balance? It was already a blessing that he was not burned to death. Thinking up to this point, Wang Sheng felt a wave of anger wash over him. Disregarding the current situation, he turned to old Taoist Ling Su and said, "Old Taoist, tomorrow morning in the manners training room, I'll beat you up." Chapter 879. As soon as Wang Sheng said this, everyone was shocked. Who was the old Taoist that Wang Sheng mentioned? Everyone knew that it was Taoist Ling Su. Don't be fooled by how Wang Sheng usually addressed old Taoist Ling Su as old Taoist Ling Su. Other than Wang Sheng, who else would not respectfully address him as Taoist Ling Su? Those of the Qing generation would call him ancestor and ancestor Ling Su. The oldest ancestor of the lousy Taoist temple was much stronger than the old Taoist Ling Su, who was at the peak of the legendary realm. They didn't know what realm he was at, but Wang Sheng wanted to beat him up? How could this be possible? Mayer stared at Wang Sheng in utter shock. She was so shocked that she covered her mouth and nearly cried out. No one knew better than her how much Wang Sheng respected old Taoist Ling Su. How could Wang Sheng say such a thing? Everyone was surprised, but what was even more surprising was that old Taoist Ling Su didn't fly into a rage, nor did he refuse. He nodded and said, "Okay, I'll wait for you in practice room tomorrow morning." What was going on? What was going on? The group of people scratched their heads and looked at each other. Even the great masters, who were too weak to stand up, looked at Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su in shock. Mayer reacted quickly. She saw that Master Yu and the others were all too tired to get up from their chairs. She hurriedly stood up, pulled Sister Rosa to open the small theater, and gave instructions to the people outside. Soon, someone came in and carefully helped each great master back to their residence. They helped them lie down, and then a group of guards guarded outside where they were resting. These great masters were all treasures. Even the loss of one would make Mayer's heart ache. Wang Sheng had said that he would cooperate with Master Yu to create a Qian Xingyuan in the music industry. What kind of business would that be? Moreover, even if it wasn't business, how many gold coins would the tickets of a group performance of these great masters sell? He couldn't afford to lose the treasure bowl. Those of the Qing generation were all in the audience. Like Mei and Rosa, they didn't feel tired. They stood up and bowed to old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng, then left in a hurry. What a joke! Something must have happened between Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. Were they an eyesore at this time? Although they were a group of old Taoist Ling Su, their observation skills were no worse than ordinary people's. Only Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were left in the small theater. Old Taoist Ling Su smiled bitterly at Wang Sheng. How would I know there would be that song? I sang it subconsciously. You almost killed everyone. Wang Sheng looked at old Taoist Ling Su's bitter smile and fell helpless. He could only clench his teeth and say angrily, "If I don't beat you up, I won't be able to vent my anger." Okay, I'll wait for you tomorrow. Old Taoist Ling Su knew that he had done something wrong, but he didn't argue. He just agreed again, then asked with concern, "How are you? After I beat you up tomorrow, I'll talk to you about what happened." Wang Sheng was upset and needed to find a way to vent. He didn't have time to think about it. He didn't even want to use the 9 words Buddhist incantation to calm himself down. As an experienced sniper on Earth, of course, he knew deep silent psychology. Some things couldn't be suppressed. It was better to vent. Wang Sheng went straight to the leather grandmaster in the mansion. He was very skilled in tanning flute membranes for Master Yu and the others. The reason why Wang Sheng looked for him was to order 2 boxing gloves and protective gear. Even if he wanted to beat up old Taoist Ling Su, it would have to be under the condition that he was protected. Leveling up was a good thing. The only trouble was that old Taoist spiritual energy was like a catalyst, transforming the spiritual energy in Wang Sheng's body into the strong, pure yang spiritual energy of old Taoist Ling Su. In the past, Wang Sheng also had pure yang spiritual energy, but it was obvious that Wang Sheng's was not as pure as old Taoist Ling Su's. At the same time, Wang Sheng was no longer a virgin because he had performed the ceremony with Song Yin and Rosa. He couldn't be compared to old Taoist Ling Su. He was at least a 200-year-old virgin with a shockingly strong fire. It could be said that the yin qi that Wang Sheng had obtained from Rosa could be completely ignored. If the balance of yin and yang continued to develop like this, it was estimated that Wang Sheng would have to reach at least the 11th stage. Wang Sheng couldn't fall asleep even when he was lying down. Perhaps everyone could see that Wang Sheng was angry for some reason, so no one deliberately approached him. Even Mei, who was usually the most clingy to Wang Sheng, dragged Rosa to somewhere unknown, leaving Wang Sheng alone in his bedroom. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Early in the morning, Wang Sheng received the boxing gloves and protective gear. The protective formation on the protective gear had been set up. Even the boxing gloves, in addition to a thick layer of cushioning material, also had a cushioning formation. After all, Wang Sheng's strength was too great. Wang Sheng couldn't be sure that old Taoist Ling Su would be able to take his fist, so it was better to have a more thorough protection. After having breakfast, Wang Sheng picked up 2 sets of boxing gloves and 2 sets of protective gear and headed straight for the training room. When he arrived, he found that Mei and Rosa were both there, but they were looking at Wang Sheng with worried expressions. In the training room, old Taoist Ling Su was already waiting for him. Mei, Rosa, stand guard outside. Don't let anyone in. Wang Sheng ordered the 2 women. He and old Taoist Ling Su were going to fight. No matter who was the one fighting, it wouldn't be good for outsiders to see it anyway. After the door was closed, Wang Sheng didn't say much. He just threw a set of equipment over. What's this? Old Taoist Ling Su looked at the things that Wang Sheng had thrown over, puzzled. He picked up the boxing gloves and asked with a frown, "Using this as a weapon? Who will buy such a weapon?" "That's because I'm afraid you'll get hurt." Wang Sheng was speechless. He gave the old Taoist the middle finger. Of course, the boxing gloves didn't increase attack power, but weakened it. This old Taoist didn't know anything. Country bumpkin. Fresh. Old Taoist Ling Su laughed. Then, he looked at Wang Sheng and imitated him. He put on the protective gear and shook his head with a curious look on his face. Old Taoist Ling Su watched Wang Sheng tie up his hands with 2 long strips of cloth. He couldn't understand what was going on. What was he doing? However, the old Taoist knew that Wang Sheng was in a bad mood. He didn't want to say much, so he just followed the old rules and did as he was told. After tying up the bandages, Wang Sheng put his gloves into the boxing gloves and tightened them. Then he looked at the old Taoist. The old Taoist did the same. Let's make this clear first. No legs, no hitting below the waist, no hitting the back of the head, and no throwing. Wang Sheng bumped his fists with the boxing gloves. Then, he skillfully walked to a place not far from the old Taoist Ling Su. He began to pull his fists by his chin, and his legs jumped like a butterfly. Old Taoist Ling Su's eyes were as big as copper bells. He looked at Wang Sheng's movements as if he had seen a ghost. Chapter 880. It was no exaggeration to say that if this was a battlefield or a killing field, Wang Sheng would have been killed by someone with such a coquettish butterfly walk. Not to mention that he had to wear gloves to reduce his attack power. He was clearly crippling his own martial arts. Even if it was just a sparring match, there was no need to do this. There were even rules that forbade the use of legs, throws, this and that. What else could he use? Seeing old Taoist Ling Su put on his gloves with a confused look on his face, Wang Sheng was secretly amused. His eyes were like a bunch of innocent spring snow that had never seen a commoner before. He gestured to old Taoist Ling Su. Old Taoist Ling Su finally reacted. Then he imitated Wang Sheng, bumping his fists together and raising them in front of his eyes. Begin, Wang Sheng shouted, giving old Taoist Ling Su time to react. In fact, old Taoist Ling Su did not react at all. He did not know what to do with his 2 gloves. Following that, however, Wang Sheng's right hook came smashing down. Bang! Wang Sheng's gloves hit old Taoist Ling Su's gloves. If this was a regular boxing match, this would not have been lethal. Unfortunately, old Taoist Ling Su's gloves only had the form, but not the spirit. It was only raised slightly. Wang Sheng's punch directly moved old Taoist Ling Su's gloves, and then smashed heavily on the left side of old Taoist Ling Su's face. Old Taoist Ling Su almost fainted. Wang Sheng's physical strength was strong, and this was the result of Wang Sheng holding back about 1/10 of his strength. But even so, there was a huge force of no less than 5,000 kilograms that hit his face. If it weren't for old Taoist Ling Su's high cultivation, coupled with the cushioning effect of the boxing gloves and the protection of his head protector, this blow would have knocked old Taoist Ling Su unconscious. Finally, the old Taoist Ling Su used his spiritual energy to prevent himself from feeling so much pain and to prevent himself from fainting. However, Wang Sheng's next punch had already landed on the old Taoist's face without hesitation. When it came to boxing, old Taoist Ling Su was a layman among laymen. He failed to defend against Wang Sheng's right hook and did not follow up. Therefore, Wang Sheng's left straight punch landed directly on old Taoist Ling Su's face. This punch directly caused old Taoist Ling Su's face to tilt backward, leaving him vulnerable. The old Taoist felt a sharp pain in his nose, and a warm stream flowed down from his nostrils. Needless to say, with such a fragile nose, how could it withstand Wang Sheng's heavy punch? This time it must be bleeding. Before he could tilt his head back, Wang Sheng's underhook had already landed heavily on old Taoist Ling Su's stomach. This punch directly straightened the old Taoist, who was leaning backward. However, this punch could be considered to have woken up the old Taoist. Wang Sheng was purely using his fist to attack. So this was his plan. Wang Sheng's next punch was blocked by the old Taoist boxing gloves and did not hit his body. Do you understand? Wang Sheng asked old Taoist Ling Su. Old Taoist Ling Su covered his nostrils with his boxing gloves and grunted. Just as he was about to continue, Wang Sheng shouted outside, "Mayor Oza, the 2 of you come in. Just the 2 of you." The two women heard a series of banging sounds from outside and did not know what was going on. They were looking at each other outside, and when they heard Wang Sheng shout, they hurriedly rushed in. As soon as they entered, the two women saw old Taoist Ling Su, whose nose was bleeding profusely. They were instantly shocked. "Stop the old Taoist's bleeding," Wang Sheng instructed the two women. He also gave the old Taoist the army formula and the man formula of the 9 words formula. Then he ran to the side of the sandbag hanging next to him and started punching nonstop. The two women did not dare to delay. They quickly rushed over and picked up a towel to stop the bleeding for old Taoist Ling Su. In fact, at this time, with the 9 words formula performed by Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, the bleeding had already stopped. It was just that it did not look good, so they just had to wipe it off. Old Taoist Ling Su allowed the two women to wipe him, but he kept a close eye on Wang Sheng's movements. Wang Sheng's punching movements were very fierce and fast. He was punching up and down, and his feet were jumping back and forth with the butterfly steps. His lower body looked unstable, but he was much more agile. It was clearly a systematic attack method. After a few glances, old Taoist Ling Su had more or less understood what was going on. The blood on the outside had almost been wiped off. Old Taoist Ling Su waved his boxing gloves and asked the two women to step back. Then he touched his own boxing gloves and walked towards Wang Sheng again. This time, old Taoist Ling Su took the initiative to attack. Before Wang Sheng could start, old Taoist Ling Su's fist had already arrived. Wang Sheng reached out to block it and then returned a punch. Then the two of them moved extremely quickly and became entangled in a fight. Mei and Rosa did not expect Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su to actually fight. They stood aside and stared at the two figures fighting inside. They suddenly did not know what to say. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su's movements were very fast. They punched back at each other. At first, Wang Sheng paid attention to dodging and moving. His punches were real and fake, and he repeatedly deceived the inexperienced old Taoist Ling Su. He hit the old Taoist again and again. In just a short while, the old Taoist had been hit more than a dozen times. Every punch made the old Taoist grimace in pain. But soon, old Taoist Ling Su saw through these simple techniques. With his rich combat experience, as long as Wang Sheng made a move, old Taoist Ling Su would know where he was going to attack just by sensing the movements of Wang Sheng's muscles. Then he could easily dodge or block it. However, old Taoist Ling Su also felt very embarrassed to be beaten up by Wang Sheng in front of Mei and Rosa. While blocking, he also began to fight back. Next, it was not a matter of skills. It completely turned into a fight between Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su. "You punched me. I punched you." They did not dodge and just took turns. The two of them did not know how many punches they had thrown at each other and how many punches they had taken. The sound of hitting bodies was almost continuous. From time to time, the two people's muffled groans could be heard from the fighting circle. Anyway, both of them were tough. If they were hit, they would at most groan. They would never cry out in pain. The series of bangs made Mei and Rosa's hearts jump. They almost cried out. The two of them did not seem to feel pain at all. They were not convinced by each other's strength. Basically, they consciously did not use spiritual energy to attack, but they had to use spiritual energy to defend. But they also did not reflect the attacks. They just took the opponent's attacks head on. Wang Sheng's physical strength was extremely strong, and he was even more patient. Old Taoist Ling Su's cultivation was high, so he did not care about such a little bit of energy consumption. Just like that, they fought from morning until noon. This also made Mei and Rosa nervous all the way until noon. Bang! A figure suddenly flew out. In the air, old Taoist Ling Su's voice could be heard. "You're cheating. You used so much strength." "I'm happy." Wang Sheng had already stopped. He said calmly to the old Taoist and the two women, "Let's have lunch." Chapter 881. Mei and Rosa personally brought lunch into the training room from outside and ate with the two of them. Half of the time, May and Rosa couldn't help but stop and cover their mouths to snicker. It was so funny that the two women didn't have the mood to eat properly at all. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had bruises all over their faces, and some of their skin was broken. They were exposed in front of the two women after a simple cleaning and no medicine was applied. There were also bumps of various sizes on some parts of their bodies. At first glance, their faces were deformed. It was as funny as it could be. From their chest to their shoulders, there were bruises all over their bodies. Other parts of their bodies were also red and swollen. They didn't look that scary, but they were really funny. At first, the old Taoist was shy and embarrassed to take off his shirt, but Wang Sheng directly goaded him. "Why? Are you afraid of being seen by my woman?" With that, the old Taoist also let go of his clothes. He imitated Wang Sheng and began to drink with Wang Sheng, topless. May and Rosa, on the other hand, blushed when they heard what Wang Sheng said. They covered it up by pouring wine for the two of them, but they were already very happy in their hearts. These injuries were all flesh wounds. None of them hurt their internal organs or brains. The two of them only needed half a day to recover their bodies to their original state with the Buddhist incantation of 9 words. This was also the reason why they didn't go out at this time. The two of them were simply too ridiculous. Their entire bodies were covered in bruises, purple bruises, and red bruises. Wang Sheng was fine. His body was very strong. Even if his upper body was topless, there was a sense of beauty in his bulging muscles. But old Taoist Ling Su was different. After he took off his upper body, his whole body was thin and bony, which formed a sharp contrast with Wang Sheng. After downing quite a few bowls of strong liquor, Taoist Ling Su let out a long breath. Only then did he turn to Wang Sheng and ask, "How did you feel yesterday? I was almost burned to death. What do you think?" Wang Sheng rolled his eyes at old Taoist Ling Su and replied tit for tat, "You're such a master, but you can't even control yourself. Don't you feel ashamed?" Accident. Old Taoist Ling Su smiled awkwardly and repeatedly explained. At this time, May and Rosa finally realized what Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su had done when they were listening to the music yesterday. They didn't know what had happened, but Wang Sheng had almost been burned to death. This scared the two women so much that they didn't even have time to laugh at them. Mayer kept asking what had happened. "It's nothing serious. I just accidentally sang a song while listening to the music and then accidentally released a stream of spiritual qi." Old Taoist Ling Su said lightly, "It only affected this kid. You're all fine. Everyone's fine. Everyone's fine." Mayer wouldn't be fooled by old Taoist Ling Su's words, so she asked Wang Sheng, "Duke, how was it affected?" After fighting with old Taoist Ling Su for so long, Wang Sheng's depression had almost been vented. At this time, he wouldn't say anything more. He also said lightly, "It's nothing. The old Taoist spiritual qi helped me condense the spiritual qi in my body. The process was a bit dangerous, but it's over now. It's fine." Wang Sheng said it casually, but Mayer and Rosa didn't believe him. Wang Sheng had just said that he was almost burned to death, so one could imagine the danger. In addition, what Wang Sheng said yesterday made Mayer and Rosa realize that during the spiritual qi body tempering period, everyone had walked on the edge of life and death. However, even if they had guessed it, Mayer and Rosa were smart enough not to ask again. It was meaningless. "Don't worry. This kid said he's fine, so he's really fine." Old Taoist Ling Su seemed to have guessed the thoughts of the two girls and added another weight to the hearts of the two girls. Then, did Duke's cultivation level increase? Mayer quickly followed up with another question. "Of course." Wang Sheng laughed. "I also broke through at that time, didn't I? I haven't congratulated you yet, Mayer." Hearing Wang Sheng say this, old Taoist Ling Su was shocked. His eyes shifted to Mayer and carefully looked at her. After a while, old Taoist Ling Su finally confirmed that Mayer had really broken through and was now in the 6th stage. But wasn't Mayer's original soul a 4-star illusory spiritual fox? He shifted his doubtful gaze to Wang Sheng and Wang Sheng nodded his head gently, tacitly agreeing to something. Only then did Taoist Ling Su feel relieved. Mayor also broke through? Congratulations. Hearing Wang Sheng's words, Rosa congratulated Mei with a face full of surprise. She didn't know what Mei's original soul was. She just thought that Mei's cultivation had improved. Does that mean I can practice the Yongchun mantra now? Mei accepted Rosa's congratulations and then immediately asked a question. No, Rosa refused directly without hesitation. Why? Mei asked in confusion. My cultivation is already sufficient, because people who cultivate the Yongchun mantra can't get pregnant and have children. This was not said by Rosa, but by Wang Sheng. He looked at Mei seriously and said, "This is the price of cultivating the Yongchun mantra. Are you willing to bear it? Can't have children?" Mei never knew that there was such a price. For the sake of beauty, she couldn't have children. Was she willing to pay this price? Looking at Wang Sheng, Mei suddenly realized that she couldn't make up her mind. Don't worry. As long as your cultivation continues to improve, your appearance won't age. Wang Sheng comforted Mei As long as you can reach the legendary realm, this won't be a problem. Am I right, old Taoist? Yes. Old Taoist Ling Su nodded his head as an answer. Mei was relieved. She raised her little fist to cheer herself on, and then happily poured wine for the two of them. After filling their cups, Mei suddenly thought of something and suddenly asked, Duke, will the Taoist spiritual energy affect your recovery? A little. A little. Wang Sheng couldn't answer. Old Taoist Ling Su could only smile and say again, it's just a little. It will slightly delay the recovery time. But after recovery, your spiritual energy will be half as pure as the old Taoists, and your overall strength will still improve. How long is a little delay? Mei was anxious. If Wang Sheng couldn't recover, many things would be affected in the future. It would be strange if Mei wasn't worried. She had vaguely heard that Wang Sheng seemed to have offended a super expert in Carefree City. She just hadn't confirmed it with Wang Sheng. Wouldn't it be terrible if Wang Sheng's recovery was affected? It will probably take twice as long. Old Taoist Ling Su didn't dare to guarantee anything. He smiled at Mei and explained, Don't worry. During this time, I will be following the old Taoist. There will be no problem with his safety. Chapter 882. In fact, old Taoist Ling Su knew very well that his influence on Wang Sheng was not just a little bit, but a huge one. Indeed, as old Taoist Ling Su had said, after Wang Sheng recovered, the purity of his spiritual energy would be at least half of what the old Taoist had now. That was definitely a great benefit. The problem was that all of this was based on the fact that Wang Sheng could completely absorb and refine that spiritual energy. Although Wang Sheng looked normal now, the old Taoist knew that it was only on the surface. If he had really refined it, would Wang Sheng be so depressed that he would want to beat him up to vent his anger? Wang Sheng was originally in the recovery period, and now that he had been disturbed, it would be good if he could advance again in a year's time. Even if he advanced again, Wang Sheng would only be in the 6th stage, which was still a big gap from the original 7th stage. The increase in time would be more than double. Mei was not fooled by old Taoist Ling Su's apologetic smile, so she asked, Taoist, is your spiritual energy too pure, so much so that the Duke's spiritual energy has completely lost its balance? Well, old Taoist Ling Su smiled guiltily. Haha. Well, it's a little affected. It's indeed more imbalanced than before, but as long as those great masters are around, it will recover after listening to a few more performances. Mei did not say anything else this time. However, the resentful look in her eyes made old Taoist Ling Su feel unnatural. Was it good to lie to a little girl like this? Don't worry, Mei. It'll be quick. Wang Sheng smiled at Mei and comforted her. Trust me, these words were just like how Wang Sheng made Mei believe that her source spirit could be improved. It instantly gave Mei incomparable courage and confidence. She smiled at Wang Sheng and nodded. The small disturbance seemed to have dissipated so easily. Outside the Duke's mansion, almost no one knew what had happened. Those who knew didn't find it strange. It wasn't the first time someone had a breakthrough while listening to a concert. It was very normal. When Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su came out of the training room in the evening, the swollen bumps had disappeared. There were still some bruises on their faces, but they had faded a lot. They believed that they would disappear without a trace after a night's sleep. Seeing this, the servants couldn't hide their laughter. However, no one dared to laugh out loud. They all had a hard time holding back their laughter. When a few Taoist priests saw the marks on Wang Sheng and the old Taoist faces, they were completely speechless. Fight for real. That was old ancestor High Void. Wang Sheng actually dared to beat him up. Although it seemed that Wang Sheng had also been beaten up, old Taoist Ling Su didn't seem to be in a good state either. This was the effect of recovering in the training room for half a day. It was estimated that after the fight, he was in a worse state than this. Master Yu and the others had obtained great benefits this time, but they were really tired. They rested in bed for 2 days and 2 nights before they could recover. Fortunately, they were already masters of the legendary realm. Their recovery ability was very strong. 2 days was enough for them to adjust themselves to the peak state. Wang Sheng came to find Master Yu to discuss a few things with him. One was the problem of the repertoire when performing. First of all, the song Tao, which was only suitable for Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su, could not be performed again. Even if it was old Taoist Ling Su, it would be impossible for him to make the same mistake again. It would be a big problem for such a deviant song to be spread out. Secondly, there was the problem of the sequence of the repertoire. Wang Sheng found that for cultivators, the melody and rhythm of performing music could effectively affect the rhythm of cultivation. At first, no one thought that there would be such a problem, so they didn't pay much attention to it. Therefore, they arranged it according to a relaxing song and an intense one, so that everyone could enjoy the music with tension and relaxation. However, in cultivation, such tension and relaxation did not bring about all the benefits. It was not easy to mobilize the aura, but a slow piece of music would suppress the rhythm again. It did not matter if they cultivated once or twice, but if they listened to it a few more times, the rhythm of cultivation in the future would be deviated. The best order was to start off with a slow tempo, then slowly increase the tempo, and finally the fast-paced music. Of course, after the climax, there was also a need for a slow tempo, and then a slow ending. This order was more appropriate. It was like exercising. At the beginning, slowly mobilize the spiritual aura, which was like warming up. After warming up, some moderately rhythmic music would be played, followed by normal exercise. When they were about to reach their limits, they would use intense music to stimulate them and help them overcome the limit. Finally, they would use a slightly relaxing song to end it. Just like tidying up exercise, they would do a final stretch to relieve muscle tension. This was the correct order of exercise and also the correct order of music. The group of great grandmasters had also experienced cultivation breakthroughs in music, so they nodded at what Wang Sheng said. After Wang Sheng expressed his ideas, everyone began to argue to see which music was suitable for which position. This required a process of practice to slowly adjust to the best. In addition, Wang Sheng also put forward some requirements for the emotions expressed by the music. It was best if it expressed positive emotions, such as cheerfulness, happiness, and happiness. Some extremely sad songs could sometimes really affect the mood of cultivation. However, the impact in this aspect had not been seen yet, and it also needed to be tested in practice. Everyone agreed with Wang Sheng's idea. When doing things, it was necessary to be in a good mood in order to be efficient, let alone when it came to cultivation. However, in this way, excluding some sorrowful pieces, the previous pieces would not be enough to support a complete performance. Master Yu unceremoniously stretched out his hand and asked Wang Sheng for a new piece of music. He had no choice. He had dug a hole, so he had to bury it himself. Wang Sheng had to take out the Eru song, Galloping War Horse again, and added Rosy Clouds Chasing the Moon to satisfy Master Yu. It also showed those instrument great grandmasters that Wang Sheng's ability to write music on the spot and they all admired Wang Sheng from the bottom of their hearts. He could casually take out two pieces of music that could be passed down from generation to generation. Even Master Shan, who did not believe in Wang Sheng's ability at the beginning, admired Wang Sheng very much. Then, Wang Sheng put forward an idea to everyone. Now, all the musical instruments could be said to be independent, and there was no formation on them to increase the effect. If all the instruments in the band were to be augmented with an array formation that could perfectly resonate with each other, then all the instruments would be able to maintain the same array formation resonance when they were performing. Combined with the array formation of the theater, wouldn't the performance be even better? This was just Wang Sheng's hypothesis. Whether it would work or not, it would need to be verified by these great grandmasters. If it did not work, then what formation would be suitable for it? All the great grandmasters patted their chests and promised that they would carefully investigate it. Chapter 883. Song Yin followed the wife of one of her subordinates in a moistening Z workshop. This was the arrangement song Yin had made before she left. She had ordered her subordinates in the capital to arrange an identity to enter Dream Workshop. The identity to enter was, of course, a golden card VIP of Moistening Z Workshop. All they had to do was top up. A golden card VIP could bring a friend or best friend in. Of course, the subordinates in the Kingdom of Song didn't dare to use Song Yan's name to open a golden card. Wouldn't that be telling the people in the capital that the princess of the Kingdom of Song was here? The capital was the territory of the royal family. How could they guarantee their safety? Therefore, the wife of one of the subordinates could only become a golden card VIP of Moistening Z Workshop. She then carefully accompanied Song Yin in a Moistening Z Workshop. Of course, the owner of the golden card was Song Yin. The female guard next to her was Song Yin's best friend. As for the wife of the subordinate, she was just a guide. All she had to do was bring them to Moistening Z Workshop. After that, she had nothing to do. Song Yin and the female guard were already looking at the cosmetic street outside the moisturizing workshop, but they were already unable to see enough. There were so many kinds of cosmetics. It was crazy. Song Yin shook her head as she looked at the women who had spent countless gold coins on their favorite cosmetics and carefully held the beautiful packaging in their hands. Their faces were full of happiness and satisfaction. Shangnan, tell me, which is more important, cultivation or beauty? Song Yin smiled and turned to ask the female guard next to her. It's good to have a high cultivation. It's best if you're also beautiful. Just like Mississippi, Song Shangnan was Song Yan's personal guard. She was a 9th-degree realm expert and had a very close relationship with Song Yin. When she heard the question, she answered with a smile and didn't forget to flatter Song Yin. Greedy, what if I can only choose one? Song Yin was amused by Song Shingnan's words and asked. If it was before, Song Shangnan would have chosen cultivation without hesitation. But now, looking at the women going in and out of Moistening Z Workshop and the many beautiful women with exquisite makeup, she suddenly didn't know what to choose. In the end, after hesitating for a long time, she finally chose one. If I could only choose one, then cultivation. Although she had made her choice, there was still a hint of unwillingness in her voice. Song Yin shook her head and smiled. She continued to walk forward, looking around as she walked. In fact, in her heart, how could she not be so hesitant? How could this guy, Wang Sheng, casually create a business that people couldn't bear to part with? She walked around the street and bought a few lipsticks for herself and Song Shengnan. Then, without looking at anything else, she walked into the beauty salon of Moisturizer Workshop. Gold card customers easily enjoyed a spa bath and a skin-softening essential oil. Then, they had their makeup redone by the best makeup artist. After doing their hair, Song Yin and Song Shengnan slowly strolled into the Dream Workshop with satisfied smiles on their faces. Today was the time of the show. This was something that had been decided long ago. When Song Yin and Song Shengnan walked in, the fashion show was about to begin. Top Gold Card VIPs, of course, had the best seats. The two of them sat next to the tea stage of the colorful boutique, waiting for the fashion show to begin. Multicolored restaurant. Song Yin saw those words as soon as she entered the room. Even after she sat down, she still couldn't calm down. In just a short while, the colorful restaurant was already full of people. It was no longer the intensive performances that had been in the beginning. However, every fashion show had new products, so there were always many fashionable women in the capital. It was still the same order, from outerwear to gowns to sportswear to underwear. Some people who came here for the first time blushed, while the regular customers calmly shared the design of the clothes with their companions around them. It was easy to tell that they were new faces at a glance. So beautiful. Song Yin was actually very quiet, but her female guard, Song Shengnan, was already starry-eyed. She couldn't hide the envy in her eyes as she looked at the clothes worn by the female models. Their shoes are so high. Won't they be affected in battle? Song Shengnan suddenly realized that all the models on the tea stage were wearing high heels. How could such high heels be used in battle? As soon as she said this, the two fashionable women on the side moved slightly to the side. Were high heels used in battle? Country bumpkins. Shut up and look carefully. Song Yin was also amused by Song Shingnan's words, but in the end, she couldn't laugh. She could only scold her and tell her not to speak. Everything in Dream Workshop existed for the sake of beauty and sex appeal. This was what the current owner of Dream Workshop, Rosa, had said. It had never been designed for battle. Song Shingnan's words clearly put herself in the position of a greedy person who wanted to be strong and beautiful at the same time. When she finally saw the sportswear, Song Shengnan finally didn't want to say anything else. The sportswear could barely be considered to be designed for sports, but it was also slightly related to battle. Song Yin had been admiring the beautiful clothes the entire time, but in her heart, she was imagining how she would look if she wore them, until undergarments appeared. The guests who came to Dream Workshop for the first time were shocked. How could there be such revealing clothes? Could they be worn outside? Finally, they were reminded that this was underwear. Only the person wearing it or the person closest to them could see it. The models only wore it to let everyone feel the effect. No wonder even women blushed when they saw it. How could it be worn outside? So that was why. Song Shengnan patted her chest and let out a long sigh. She didn't dare to speak, which made her feel uncomfortable. However, it seemed that if she really wore it like this, it might vaguely look pretty good. Song Yin, on the other hand, looked at the beautiful female models and snorted coldly in her heart. By the time the fashion show was over, everyone was free to go to Rosa's pavilion or City of Charm. Song Yin and Song Shengnan were so attracted by the variety of beautiful clothes that they couldn't leave. Thinking that most of the beautiful clothes were basically designed by Wang Sheng, Song Yin didn't say anything. Bye. As long as she liked it, she would take one according to her number. She didn't know how many items she had bought along the way. At the underwear counter, she even secretly told the saleswoman to get the sexiest sets and wrap them up. Chapter 884. Other than shopping in Charm City, they also had to go to Rosa's gym. As soon as he entered the door, he saw a group of well-trained, noble women in tight-fitting sportswear doing various exercises energetically. Song Yin and Song Shengnan had originally thought that only cultivators with a good figure like theirs could have. They hadn't expected that some of the second or third stage cultivators, or even ordinary women with lower cultivation levels, could also have such a good figure. They had never thought that such a thing would happen. However, there was already a group of curvaceous noble women. Their cultivation was only slightly higher than that of ordinary people, but their figures were enough to put Song Shengnan to shame. Along the way, they saw all kinds of strange fitness equipment. There was also a group of people dancing to intense music that made people blush. At first glance, Song Shengnan didn't dare to look. However, after a while, she was attracted by the explosive music. She turned her head and stared unblinkingly, as if her body was about to dance to the rhythm. These were all explained by professionals. If you didn't understand, you could ask questions at any time. It could be said that everything in Rosa's gym was built for the sake of body and appearance. It's obviously to seduce men. Song Shengnan muttered quietly behind Song Yin. The beautiful woman in charge of explaining clearly had good hearing. She heard everything clearly, but she didn't say anything. She just maintained her smile and led the two women on. In the swimming pool, there were already about a dozen beautiful women who could cut through the waves. Their beautiful figures, tight-fitting swimsuits, and wet hair gave people a completely different kind of healthy beauty. Along the way, Song Yin already had a basic idea of what the dream workshop was like. She had to say that Wang Sheng had indeed found a good business. When they left Dream Workshop and were about to pay, Song Shengnan was shocked. The total value of the clothes the two of them had bought was hundreds of thousands of gold coins. These clothes were just ordinary clothes. They didn't even have a protective array formation on them. There was so little fabric, but they were sold at several times more expensive than protective clothing. When she saw that the tight corset vest she had bought cost more than 10,000 gold coins, Song Shengnan felt uneasy. He had spent too much of Mrs. Gold coins. Song Yin did not mind it at all. It was just a few 100,000 gold coins. For the Song clan's first miss, it was no problem at all. What's more, this was Wang Sheng's business, so it was considered a form of support. However, there was a batch of underwear that made people blush just thinking about it. It seemed like those clothes could only be worn for viewing. Wang Sheng stayed in the Duke's mansion for a few days, waiting for the bruises on his face to subside before leaving the mansion. Normally, Wang Sheng was too lazy to leave the Duke's mansion. When he was in the capital, he would stay in the mansion whenever he could. This was a good place to cultivate and recuperate. Why would he go out? From his point of view, Wang Sheng was just a slightly bigger otaku than most otaku. This time, he had left the Duke's mansion because Mayor had insisted on dragging Wang Sheng to the Royal Academy of Arts. At the same time, she wanted to confirm the location of the musical instrument business. Although they hadn't decided on a name yet, they definitely had to do this business. The reason why she had insisted on dragging Wang Sheng was because Mayor felt that Wang Sheng had been in a bad mood in the Duke's mansion recently, so she had dragged him out to relax. When it came to caring about Wang Sheng's physical and mental health, Mayor was definitely the most proactive person. The imperial family moved quickly. The Royal Academy of Arts had already been cleared out, and they were just waiting for Wang Sheng's specific requirements to immediately demolish and rebuild it. The Son of Heaven spared no effort in slowly expanding the imperial family's influence in the capital. After visiting the Royal Academy of Arts, Wang Sheng and Mayor arrived at the courtyard that Mayor had already found for the musical instrument business. Like Qian Shengyuan, it was close to the Royal Academy of Arts. The geographical advantage was obvious. After looking at it, Wang Sheng immediately nodded. Mayor's talent in business was definitely not just for show. There was no place more suitable than this. After taking a walk outside, Wang Sheng's mood seemed to have improved. However, unconsciously, Wang Sheng seemed to feel a familiar gaze staring at him from afar. Without batting an eyelid, Wang Sheng looked in that direction, but there was no one there. Wang Sheng's heart skipped a beat. Then he continued to stroll around with Mayor, surrounded by a group of guards. After returning to the Duke's mansion, Wang Sheng resumed his normal routine and continued to cultivate and recuperate. However, it was obvious that he was much more cheerful. Mayor was very happy. She knew that her actions of dragging Wang Sheng out had played a role, so she was as happy as a child. At night, after accompanying Mayor and Rosa for dinner, Wang Sheng did not continue his daily training. Instead, he bade farewell to the old Taoist and left the Duke's mansion together for a walk. Uncle Li from the carefree city was still a threat. Before Wang Sheng's cultivation could recover, Wang Sheng would not joke around with his life. During the day, he was accompanied by a large number of guards, and, at night, he was with the old Taoist Ling Su. With the old Taoist by his side, it was more useful than having an army of thousands of men and horses. Old Taoist Ling Su and Wang Sheng walked slowly on the street as they asked, "You came out for a walk so late at night. Did you find anything?" "I might have bumped into someone I know." Wang Sheng smiled, but did not elaborate. He just slowly walked in the direction he saw during the day. The old Taoist did not ask any more questions. He slowly followed Wang Sheng, taking it as a way to relax. In the direction that Wang Sheng looked at during the day, In the largest house, Song Shangnan was still complaining about her mistress. "Miss, if you want to see him, just invite him over openly. Why do you have to sneak around? If you look at him like this, will he know? I don't like to see him when there are other women by his side." Song Yin was wearing a set of clothes bought from the Dream Workshop. She looked very pretty. When she saw that Song Shangnan was still complaining, she could not help but laugh. "If he misses me, he will definitely feel it. If he doesn't miss me, what's the point of seeing him? My silly mistress. Then hurry up and snatch him over." Song Shangnan sighed and continued to complain. "Look, with such a capable son-in-law, who wouldn't fight to have him? Miss, do you want to be snatched away by that vixen? These Qian Sheng Yuan, Moisturizing Workshop, and the Dream Workshop all belong to you. Now they're all being taken advantage of by someone else." Song Yin smiled and picked up the lantern. Just as she was about to say something, there was a clear knock on the door from outside the courtyard. When she heard the sound, Song Shengnan's expression changed. However, she saw that her mistress had suddenly smiled. When she saw Song Shangnan look over, Song Yin smiled like a blooming flower. "Shangnan, why aren't you opening the door?" Song Shangnan had never seen such a bright smile from Song Yin. Surprised, she flew down the stairs and walked to the door of the courtyard. The person outside seemed to hear her footsteps and did not continue to knock. When she opened the door, Song Shangnan saw Wang Sheng's figure with his hands behind his back. Chapter 885. Song Shangnan could swear that she had always been with her mistress and had never left. Even if it was a private matter, as a woman, Song Shangnan protected her mistress closely. She had never let her mistress out of her sight. During the day, Wang Sheng and Meier had been looking at the courtyard over there. The mistress seemed to have guessed that they would come and had bought a house here early. During the day, Wang Sheng had been surrounded by so many people, but the mistress had only glanced over from upstairs. Song Shangnan could swear to the heavens that it had only been one glance. She hadn't even made a sound, let alone shouted. Then Song Yin had immediately retreated into her room. Even if Wang Sheng had looked over at that time, he would have only seen an empty house. He wouldn't have seen anyone. But how had Wang Sheng come to her door? What was even more inexplicable was that her mistress had been wearing the clothes she had bought from the dream house all night and waiting for something. Did she already know that Wang Sheng would come? Or did they have some sort of secret communication token between them? "I'm here to look for someone." Wang Sheng smiled warmly at Song Shangnan. Then, without waiting for Song Shengnan's reaction, he walked straight in. Song Shangnan was about to stop him when her body suddenly went numb. She couldn't move. She heard an old voice in her ear. "I haven't seen him a long time. Why are you stopping him? You have no sense." Wang Sheng had already walked far away. He had even gently closed the door he had just opened. Song Shangnan stood there motionless. Her face was covered in sweat. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't make a sound. She wanted to move, but her entire body seemed to have frozen. What kind of terrifying master was this? Song Shengnan's heart was completely filled with fear. Was Wang Sheng going to do something to her mistress? Was he going to take revenge on her mistress? The more she thought about it, the more terrifying the consequences became. However, she couldn't do anything. There was nothing she could do other than sweat. Her vision blurred. Song Shangnan felt that the room had changed. When he took a closer look, he realized that he was already sitting on a chair at the bottom of the building, but he still couldn't move. She could only hear the sound of Wang Sheng's footsteps as he walked up the stairs leisurely. This was the first time that Wang Sheng had come to this courtyard, but it was as if he had been here 100 times. He went upstairs with familiarity, walked to the door, stretched out his hand, and gently knocked twice. The door opened, and a slender hand reached out, grabbed Wang Sheng's collar, and pulled him in. Wang Sheng did not struggle. He followed the hand inside and entered the room. Just as he stood still, the door was closed. Then, Wang Sheng smelled a familiar fragrance. 2 arms were already wrapped around Wang Sheng's neck. His lips touched another pair of soft and tender lips, and a lilac tongue was already coming towards him. Wang Sheng reached out and wrapped his arms around Song Yan's slender waist. He kissed her passionately and didn't let go for a long time. After a long time, their lips parted and the two of them panted heavily. The kiss just now almost left the two of them breathless. Long time no see. After finally catching his breath, Wang Sheng smiled and said to Song Yin, "How are you?" "Not good at all." Song Yin gritted her teeth and said, "I just saw an annoying guy looking around with a beauty during the day. I'll cut him up sooner or later." "It's not just one." Wang Sheng also laughed. "There's a prince's mansion not far away, and there are hundreds of femme fatale beauties there. I usually sleep there." This sentence seemed to have poked a hornet's nest, and Song Yin immediately went crazy and pushed Wang Sheng far away. Just as Wang Sheng stood up, Song Yin pounced on him again and pushed him back again. There was an embroidered bed behind him, and Wang Sheng sat directly on it. However, Song Yin didn't let him go. She exerted force again, and Wang Sheng could only lie down. Song Yin jumped and sat directly on Wang Sheng's stomach, staring fiercely at Wang Sheng. Then, she smiled like a blooming flower. "Do I look good in this?" Song Yin sat up and opened her arms, revealing her clothes in front of Wang Sheng. "Yes." Wang Sheng smiled and said, "You're beautiful. You look good in anything. Don't move." Song Yin was very satisfied, and then she lowered her head and kissed Wang Sheng's lips fiercely again. At the same time, she used force with her hands and tore Wang Sheng's clothes into pieces. Then, Song Yin took the initiative. Like an empress, she maintained her position on top and made love with Wang Sheng several times. Even when she had no strength left, she still stubbornly climbed on Wang Sheng's chest, not letting Wang Sheng get up and press her down. "At least you're honest." Song Yin was very satisfied with the pure yang aura in Wang Sheng's body. This showed that even though Wang Sheng had hundreds of beautiful women around him who were willing to do anything for him, he didn't cross the line at all. Some of the Song family's secret mental cultivation methods contain this content. Through this method, Song Yin could easily determine whether Wang Sheng was addicted to women or not. Song Yin used Wang Sheng's arm as a pillow. One of her legs was on Wang Sheng's stomach, and the other hand was drawing circles on Wang Sheng's chest. After a while, she suddenly asked, "Are Sheng Nan and the others okay?" "Sheng Nan?" Wang Sheng was stunned for a moment, but then he realized that it should be the female guard. He grunted and said, "They're fine. The old Taoist knows when to stop. They won't be able to move for a while at most. There won't be any danger." Song Shengnan hadn't made a sound for such a long time. How could Song Yin not know that Wang Sheng's people must have restrained her? When she thought of Wang Sheng, her self-proclaimed fiancé, who had fallen from the sky, and who had worked hard for a few years to become an important figure who could stand on equal footing with the major feudal vassals, Song Yin felt sincerely proud of Wang Sheng. She hadn't misjudged him after all. "How have you been these days?" It was only now that Wang Sheng asked about Song Yan's situation. Speaking of which, Wang Sheng felt a little ashamed. However, Song Yin had taken the initiative like a queen the moment they met. Even if Wang Sheng wanted to make small talk, he couldn't in that situation. "I have the final say in the Song Kingdom. What do you think?" Song Yan's face flushed red as she asked Wang Sheng in a very arrogant tone. "So, it's a female High Duchess Song. My apologies for not recognizing you." Wang Sheng also joined in the fun and replied with a chuckle, making Song Yin happy. After teasing him, Song Yin smiled and asked Wang Sheng, "Guess what I'm doing in the capital?" "It's nothing more than a few things." Wang Sheng didn't even think before answering, "Royal Theater, Royal Symphony Orchestra, Royal Academy of Arts." At this point, his gaze swept over the sexy lingerie that Song Yin had just taken off. He continued, "I'm also taking a look at the Dream Workshop. Let's see if the yin in the colorful pavilion is Song Yan's yin, right?" Chapter 886. Oomph. Wang Sheng had hit the nail on the head, so Song Yin only grumbled softly and didn't say anything else. She just lay in Wang Sheng's arms and enjoyed the elasticity of Wang Sheng's muscles. After a while, Song Yin asked faintly, "Does the yin in the colorful restaurant refer to Song Yan's yin? What do you think?" Wang Sheng moved his arm away and lightly patted Song Yan's bare buttocks as a lesson. Some things didn't need to be said out loud. The truth was obvious. Even if others couldn't tell, how could the person involved not know? Song Yan's heart was actually very sweet. However, when she thought of the City of Charm and Rosa restaurant, Song Yin felt unhappy, as if her things had been taken away from her. However, Song Yin couldn't jump out to fight for anything. Usually, Song Yin had to maintain the balance in the Song Kingdom and use Duke Song's name to develop. It was very tiring. Sometimes, she had to act like a powerful queen. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to control her subordinates. In the past 2 years, she had finally gained a firm foothold. However, when she was free, Song Yin would miss Wang Sheng more and more. She missed the person who once gave her great courage and later gave her great hope. Song Yin was very sure that if it wasn't for Wang Sheng, she wouldn't have the power she had now. It could be said that the confidence to control the Song Kingdom was brought to her by Wang Sheng. That theater and orchestra are really that useful? Song Yin still couldn't believe it. She couldn't completely accept what she had heard from others. What's your cultivation now? Wang Sheng tightened his arms and asked Song Yin. Peak of the 7th stage. Song Yin replied proudly. She raised her head slightly and looked at Wang Sheng with a proud smile. Do you feel a sense of achievement? Song Yan's soul was a 6-star frost turtle. According to the imagination of most people, the peak of the 6th stage was the limit. There was no way for her to continue advancing. Now that she was at the peak of the 7th stage, it meant that the things Wang Sheng had told her had taken effect. A little. Wang Sheng smiled, but it's not as good as advancing from an unranked source spirit to the 7th stage realm. Of course, this was referring to Wang Sheng himself. Just as Song Yin was feeling proud of herself, she was rendered speechless by Wang Sheng's words. She was so angry that she clenched her fist and punched Wang Sheng. How was the 7th stage realm summit? Song Yin asked. Just now, when Wang Sheng asked her about her realm, it definitely wasn't just to ask about her realm. There must be another reason. Stay in Beijing for a few days. I'll arrange a performance for you. Wang Sheng naturally wanted Song Yin to experience it for herself. Even if others said 1,000 or 10,000 things, it would not be as good as personally experiencing it for himself to leave a deep impression, so there was no question of doubt. And Song Yin agreed obediently and curled up in Wang Sheng's arms with great enjoyment. Suddenly, Song Yin seemed to have realized something as she abruptly raised her head and looked at Wang Sheng as she asked, Aren't you in the 7th stage realm? Why isn't your realm right? The old Taoist felt that my previous foundation wasn't stable, so he abolished my previous cultivation and cultivated all over again. Wang Sheng didn't tell the whole truth and only told her about what had happened. Song Yin didn't have much of a reaction towards this, as the same thing had happened to her before. After Wang Sheng executed the heaven and earth reversal, Song Yan's cultivation dropped to the 5th stage realm. Relying on the nourishment of the life rejuvenation pill, she quickly recovered to the peak of the 6th stage realm. And under her extreme trust towards Wang Sheng, she broke through the limit of the peak of the 6th stage realm and entered the peak of the 7th stage realm. After silently enjoying Wang Sheng's gentleness, Song Yin suddenly said to Wang Sheng, These 2 years my father has been recuperating. His health has improved, but it's not enough to support him to become the real Duke Song again. If he doesn't have any thoughts about you in the future, can you let him go? Her tone was filled with a trace of pleading. Song Yin was actually stuck between these 2 men and was in a dilemma. On one side was her father, and on the other side was her lover. Unfortunately, her father had the intention to kill her lover. With this ending, Song Honda was powerless to do anything to Wang Sheng, and Wang Sheng didn't take the initiative to provoke Song Honda. In Song Yan's eyes, this was the best situation. Her pleading was actually to explain Song Honda's current situation to Wang Sheng. I don't care. Wang Sheng smiled. If he doesn't have any other thoughts, I don't have the habit of killing a seriously ill patient. It wasn't that Wang Sheng was magnanimous, but Wang Sheng's cultivation had not recovered yet. Even if he had any thoughts, he wouldn't be able to do anything. Moreover, Uncle Li of Carefree City was considered a great enemy. When the day came that Wang Sheng didn't even care about Uncle Li, there wouldn't be much difference if Song Honda had one or one less. Speaking of which, Uncle Lee was definitely an old fox. From the moment Wang Sheng left Carefree City until now, he hadn't leaked a single word. No one knew that Wang Sheng had already offended the person with the most authority in Carefree City apart from the city lord. They all thought that Wang Sheng was still cooperating with Carefree City. I should go. After lying with Song Yin for another hour, Wang Sheng had no choice but to leave even though he was unwilling. If he didn't return through the night, he didn't know what kind of storm the Duke's mansion would cause in the capital. MMPH. Right after he said that, Wang Sheng's lips were sealed by Song Yan's. Song Yin didn't waste any more words. She used her actions to express her feelings. Pressing down on Wang Sheng, Song Yin once again mounted Wang Sheng and galloped like a wild horse. After squeezing Wang Sheng dry, she dismounted and covered herself with a blanket. She watched as Wang Sheng got up. Wang Sheng took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put them on. He looked at Song Yin, who was leaning against the pillow and looking at him. Suddenly, he reached out and pulled her into his arms. As Song Yin struggled, he kissed her forcefully. Then, he turned around and went downstairs. Song Shengnian was still sitting motionlessly downstairs. When she saw Wang Sheng leisurely walk down, her body struggled for a while. Unfortunately, she couldn't break free from the invisible restraints. When Wang Sheng walked out of the small building, she heard Wang Sheng walk out of the courtyard and close the door. Suddenly, her body regained the ability to move. When she realized this, Song Shengnian was shocked. However, she didn't dare to rush out and cause trouble for Wang Sheng. She hurriedly flew up to the second floor and pushed open the door. When she saw that her young miss was unharmed, she let out a long sigh of relief. But then, she couldn't laugh anymore. Song Yin's fragrant shoulders were exposed. She covered herself with the blanket in a daze. This posture was clearly, "Shengnan, I'm fine." Hearing Song Shengnan's movements, Song Yin also regained her senses. She smiled at Song Shengnan. "We'll stay here for a few more days. Bring in the experts from outside the city. In a few days, we'll personally go listen to the concert." Chapter 887. How dare you touch High Duke Song's daughter? No wonder he's hunting you down. Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su were on their way back to the Duke's mansion. At that moment, there was no one on the street except for the two of them. Old Taoist Ling Su sighed and shook his head as he looked at Wang Sheng, who was walking a little unsteadily. "He was hunting me down even before I made a move." Wang Sheng curled his lips and replied with dissatisfaction, "I've been hunted down for so long. No matter what, I have to get back at him with some interest." Although that was what he said, Wang Sheng thought about Song Yan's rare gentleness. He thought about how Song Yin was struggling to support the Song nation on her own. He felt an indescribable pity for her. Unfortunately, sometimes the positions of both parties meant that some things could not be compromised. This kind of relationship was really helpless. Wang Sheng even had to ask old Taoist Ling Su to subdue Song Yan's guards when he wanted to meet her in private. Wang Sheng and Song Yin might be able to trust each other, but it was hard to say for certain people. He had to be wary of them. Besides, Wang Sheng did not believe that old Taoist Ling Su did not hear Song Yin say that she was now responsible for the entire Song nation. However, there were some things that did not need to be said too clearly. Old Taoist Ling Su was just reminding him. After returning to the Duke's mansion, Wang Sheng took a bath. It was almost midnight, so he began his cultivation. As soon as he started, Wang Sheng was slightly stunned. This time, Song Yin definitely did not use the heaven and earth reversal technique. However, when he circulated his spiritual energy, he found that there seemed to be a trace of yin qi. It was slightly easier than before. Perhaps this was also the reason why old Taoist Ling Su did not say anything. If he could slightly reduce the imbalance between yin and yang in Wang Sheng, it could also be considered as helping old Taoist Ling Su to slightly relieve some of the trouble he had caused before. No one knew what Wang Sheng and old Taoist Ling Su did when they went out. Wang Sheng didn't say anything. The old Taoist didn't say anything. so naturally, Song Yan wouldn't say anything either. As for whether anyone was following Wang Sheng and the old Taoist, in the capital, anyone who dared to do such a thing would definitely die a terrible death. If it was just Wang Sheng alone, there might still be people who would dare to do it. But with the addition of the old Taoist Ling Su, any smart person would know how to choose. The next morning, Wang Sheng went to discuss with Master Yu and the others. Of course, the topic of discussion was to perform at the Royal Theatre. The date had to be decided in advance. We still haven't mastered the sequence that you mentioned. Master Yu and the other grandmasters had already discussed for a long time. At this moment, they told Wang Sheng their conclusion. We don't know how the effect will be. Duke, do you think we should try in the small theater first? There's no need to try. Wang Sheng directly waved his hand and smiled. Even if we follow the original sequence, there won't be any problems. We only changed the sequence because we want to make it better. The effect of the Royal Theatre is much better than the small theater. You should be experienced in this. As for the effect of the experiment, we can directly go to the Royal Theatre to test it. After the experiment, we will come back to the small theater to make adjustments. Master, you had already performed a few times at the Royal Theatre. The effect was outstanding. Basically, tickets were released a few days in advance, and all of them were in short supply. Hearing this, he nodded. Of course, good things should be enjoyed by one's own people first. Let the audience who would spend a lot of money be the test subjects. All right, let's do it in 5 days. Master Yu and the other grandmasters exchanged opinions and gave a definite answer to Wang Sheng. On that day, the Duke's mansion released the news that the tickets would be released the next day. However, the tickets for this concert were 10,000 gold coins each. Once the news came out, the entire capital was in an uproar. When the Royal Symphony Orchestra first got its name, it was only 10 gold coins for a concert ticket. However, very quickly, in less than a month, the price had increased by 20 times to 200 gold coins. Ever since people discovered that the Royal Symphony Orchestra's performance could help people cultivate and even help them achieve a breakthrough, the supply of 200 gold coins tickets could not meet the demand. Tickets were even sold for thousands of gold coins on the black market. Originally, people thought that this was already the limit. In the end, Wang Sheng's first move was indeed extraordinary. He increased the price by 50 times to 10,000 gold coins. Most importantly, there was no explanation. He didn't even say which orchestra was performing this time. It was worse than before. At least in the past, people would say it was the Royal Symphony Orchestra. When the news came out, Chief Steward Li received the news immediately and immediately rushed over. The royal family wants 500 tickets? Wang Sheng looked at Chief Steward Li in surprise and asked, "You're not joking?" His Majesty said that if you want gold coins, send 5 million gold coins to the residents tomorrow, or directly deduct it from this year's Qian Sheng Yuan and Runzi Workshop's dividends. Chief Steward Li smiled and answered Wang Sheng's question in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. All right, Wang Sheng didn't care. It didn't matter who he sold it to. Giving out 500 tickets at once would save him a lot of trouble. Seeing that Chief Steward Li had personally come to visit, Wang Sheng suddenly had an idea. He suddenly said to Chief Steward Li, "Chief Steward Li, when the time comes, you must bring the Emperor to listen to it. If you have any subordinates who are close to you, I strongly suggest that they go as well." Thank you for the reminder, Duke. Wang Sheng's strong suggestion had already made it very clear that there were great benefits involved. Others might not know, but how could Chief Steward Li not know? A group of old men came to Wang Sheng's residence, and it was said that all of them were masters of musical instruments. The Royal Symphony Orchestra standard was already so good. What would an orchestra with all of them be? For this, Chief Steward Li was very grateful. That's right. High Duke Song's daughter has cooperated with me for a period of time. After reminding Chief Steward Li, Wang Sheng calmly talked about Song Yan. This time, I happened to come to the capital to visit the Dream Workshop, so I made the decision to invite her to enjoy the concert. How could the Emperor not know the relationship between Wang Sheng and Song Yan? That year, the reason why the Dai family hunted down Wang Sheng was because Wang Sheng killed the Dai family's young master for Song Yan. It could be said that they were friends of life and death. Of course, Chief Stewardly was no stranger to Song Yin, but he was still shocked. Song Yin came to the capital? While feeling nervous, Chief Stewardly suddenly understood the very obvious hint from Wang Sheng. Song Yin came to the capital to visit the Dream Workshop, and his heart immediately went wild. However, this time, he was more happy than surprised. When he looked at Wang Sheng again, his expression had changed. The Emperor and Wang Sheng were doing their best to make the capital into an economic and cultural center. Of course, Chief Stewardly knew about this and was deeply involved in it. High Duke Song's daughter was also attracted to the Dream Workshop. What did this mean? Didn't this mean that the capital was developing in the direction they hoped for? This servant will return to the palace to report to His Majesty. Chief Stewardly quickly replied to Wang Sheng, Duke, feel free to invite Miss Song. Don't worry about the safety of Miss Song and her entourage. In the capital, they will definitely be satisfied. When I return, this servant will strongly persuade His Majesty to meet Miss Song. Duke, you will definitely be satisfied. Chapter 888. The reason why Wang Sheng told Stewardly about Song Yan's arrival in the capital was because of a sudden inspiration. Although the capital had Qian Xingyuan, Runzi Workshop, Dream Workshop, the Royal Theater, the Royal Symphony Orchestra, and the Royal Academy of Arts in the future, the vassal states were still wary of the royal family. Apart from necessary envoys, the important figures didn't dare to come to the capital easily. Song Yan's arrival in the capital was a great opportunity for publicity. If the emperor could cooperate, it would easily give the other vassal states the impression that the capital was only leading the way in certain areas. Since Duke Song's daughter could stay safe in the capital, the important figures from the other vassal states could also enjoy freedom in the capital. Think about it. How many of the important figures' wives didn't want to go to Runzi Workshop or Dream Workshop? Didn't they want to go to the Royal Theater? Didn't they like Qian Xingyuan? Didn't they want to go to Qian Shangyuan to choose what they liked? Didn't they want to bring their family to enjoy an elegant concert that could also improve their cultivation? As long as the important figures from the vassal states didn't come to the capital to die, the royal family wouldn't dare to do anything to them. In the past, they were enemies and might take advantage of the situation. But now, the royal family had clearly expressed their good intentions. Even if something happened to these people in the capital, others would think that it was the other factions that were trying to frame them. When the vassal states were used to treating the capital as their first choice for vacations or meetings, the capital's influence had already spread far and wide. Wang Sheng believed that the Son of Heaven would definitely be able to recognize the opportunity within this. He also knew that the Son of Heaven would definitely cooperate with him to put on this show. As for Song Yin, apart from Wang Sheng, who knew that she was in control of the kingdom of Song, only her confidants knew. Apart from them, who else would know? Of course, there was another important factor in this whole matter, and that was whether Song Yin was willing or not. However, Wang Sheng felt that he had the ability to persuade Song Yin to agree. How can you be so sure that I'll agree? They were still in Song Yan's courtyard, but it was already daytime. Wang Sheng and Song Yin sat in the living room. Song Yin asked Wang Sheng with dissatisfaction. Of course, Wang Sheng replied very easily. There's no harm in it anyway, right? But I don't get anything out of it. Song Yin was still dissatisfied. The benefits are great. Wang Sheng let out a long sigh. Putting aside the craziness that a full Grandmaster Orchestra would bring to the people in the theater, Wang Sheng was certain that Song Yin would agree to the other benefit alone. Tell me about it, Song Yin said with great interest. After this, you can come to the capital at any time in the future. Isn't this a great benefit? Wang Sheng smiled and said, as long as you manage the Song Nation well, you can come to the capital as the first miss of the Song Nation at any time. You can even go to other places. It is much better than being chained to the Song Nation's palace, right? Song Yin was not a female otaku, nor was she a woman who would sit in the palace and deal with political affairs every day. Wang Sheng knew this. If she had really been tied down by those political affairs, it would have been impossible for her to have her current breakthrough in cultivation. Song Yin must be very happy to be able to come and go as she pleased. Even if she could only come to the capital without worry, it was also a kind of liberation for Song Yin. Moreover, there was still Wang Sheng in the capital. All right, Song Yin really liked this benefit and nodded. Then I will reluctantly give you face. I will cooperate when needed. Remember to bring all your subordinates. Wang Sheng was willing to give such a great benefit to the emperor. Of course, he was willing to let Song Yin get the same benefit. Don't worry about safety. With me around, don't miss out on good things. Song Yin knew that there must be a reason why Wang Sheng arranged a concert for her. After thinking for a while, she thought about how all the subordinates in the courtyard were silently subdued when she had sex with Wang Sheng. She did not insist and nodded in agreement. If Wang Sheng really had any bad intentions towards her, there was no need for him to make a move on her at the concert, right? After settling Song Yin, the emperor also sent a message that he would invite Song Yin to the same room to enjoy the concert. After all, he wanted to share the joy with the people. Wang Sheng and the old Taoist strolled out together. On the way back, Wang Sheng discovered a very interesting phenomenon. On the streets of the capital, there were actually women wearing the clothes of the dream workshop. One had to know that everything in the dream workshop, from the beginning, was only worn in the inner house by Wang Sheng for his beloved to enjoy. From the underwear to the outerwear, there were sexy designs. It was not something that people would wear normally. Because of this, the dream workshop was not attacked by those old fogies. After all, the dream workshop had long said that it was a business for women. Moreover, it was a secret business within the boudoir. In addition, the all-female management method made many people speechless. Could it be that without the dream workshop, those undergarments could only be made by themselves? Weren't there still stores selling them? In fact, there were many old fogies in the capital. When their women wore the undergarments of the dream workshop for them to see in the inner house, these old fogies were all excited. If they scolded the dream workshop at this time, wouldn't that be picking up their bowl to eat and then putting down their bowl to beat the chef? This kind of tasteless thing was not something that people who prided themselves on being benevolent and righteous would do. Moreover, the empress had a share in the business of the dream workshop. Who would dare to scold them? In the past few years, several princes have been beheaded and their properties confiscated. More than 3 to 5 princes had also been killed. As for high-ranking officials of various ranks, there were close to 100 of them, who would have the itch to criticize on this matter. The dream workshop was very stable. Wang Sheng had been confident from the beginning. However, it must have taken a lot of courage for someone to wear the clothes of the dream workshop out in public. Even though Wang Sheng already had this plan, which was to let people accept the dream workshop first, and then slowly let them accept the clothes of the dream workshop in public, when someone really did it, Wang Sheng deeply admired their courage. Especially this kind of woman who was so advanced in her thinking. She was truly a warrior. In Wang Sheng's estimation, Rosa and her sister should be the ones to lead the fashion trend in the end. However, the people he saw on the streets were not. This made Wang Sheng curious. What kind of person would dare to be the first in the world? Chapter 889. Speaking of which, the outfits of Dream Workshop weren't too deviant. At least, they were tightly wrapped from top to bottom. If there was anything inappropriate, it would be that the clothes were a little too skinny. The waist was tightened, and the breasts were naturally protruding. In addition, the waist and buttocks were tightened, and the curves were naturally revealed. Wearing such clothes, as long as a woman had a good figure, it would be strange if she didn't attract the attention of the entire street when she walked on the streets in this day and age. With his good eyesight, Wang Sheng naturally saw the 2 identical twin girls, each wearing the same outfits produced by Dream Workshop. They appeared on the streets of the capital with calm expressions, the tight-fitting waists and protruding breasts. What was more exaggerated was that they weren't wearing dresses. Instead, they were wearing tight pants designed by Wang Sheng. On their feet, they wore a pair of knee-high stilettos, showing off their long legs in an exaggerated manner. From Wang Sheng's side to the 2 girls' side, there was almost no one. It was as if the two girls were street tigers. There were only a few people in the middle of the street. That was why Wang Sheng could see the two girls' appearance and clothes at a glance. As if intimidated by the two girls, the people on the street immediately retreated to the sides of the street. Many men wanted to look, but they were deterred by the two girls' sharp gazes. They only dared to sneak a glance. However, the two girls' figures were like magnets, attracting all the men's attention. Of course, most of them were women. However, when the citizens of the capital who weren't customers of Dream Workshop saw the clothes, their first reaction was, "Oh my God, it's so offensive to public morals." This kind of scene had actually happened many times in the colorful house of Dream Workshop. The audience who saw the fashion show for the first time all reacted the same way. However, after seeing the beauty of the models, they remembered that these ridiculously beautiful clothes would only be worn in the inner residence, so there was no taboo. Only then did they slowly accept it. But now, someone was actually wearing Dream Workshop's outer clothing on the streets. At least 95% of the young ladies who saw it were cursing in their hearts. As they cursed, they stared fixedly at it, not knowing if they were envious or jealous. Logically speaking, if these two women were to appear on the streets like this, they would have long been surrounded and harassed by countless hedonistic young masters. However, these two unbelievably beautiful young women, until now, no one had dared to harass them. Are you kidding me? Worry-Free City's two most famous red card assassins. Yet someone dares to flirt with them on the street? Is he tired of living? The old Taoist Ling Su is also staring at the beautiful twins. He didn't even try to hide his gaze. He spoke softly, as if he had already guessed what Wang Sheng was thinking. No wonder, Wang Sheng said, "I thought she was Uncle Li's maid. I didn't expect her to have such a powerful background." Everyone's attention was attracted by the stunning twins, and the tall, long-haired man behind the twins seemed to have been neglected. Of course, this was only the view of ordinary people. How could Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su ignore such a terrifying enemy? Uncle Li had come to the capital. Seeing this scene, Wang Sheng actually felt relieved. In the past, he had been waiting on tenterhooks. The omnipresent threat was too terrifying. Now that he had seen Uncle Li with his own eyes, his heart was at ease. There was no need to be afraid anymore. At this moment, Uncle Li did not display any of the terrifying aura of an expert. Instead, he looked like the two beautiful twins attendant. At first glance, he was at most a junior in the first or second stage. That ridiculously young face of his made him look even younger than Wang Sheng. He was clearly a fledgling who had just come into contact with the world. However, Wang Sheng and the old Taoist Ling Su, who knew about Uncle Li's background, had already focused all their attention on Uncle Li. Uncle Li couldn't have come to the capital at this time just to enjoy music, right? Song Yin had just calmed down, and now there was another Uncle Li, as well as two red card assassins who dared to walk around in Dream Workshop's clothes. This was going to be interesting. However, Wang Sheng did not care. The old Taoist Ling Su was right next to him. The old Taoist would not take the initiative to kill for Wang Sheng, but it was obvious that Wang Sheng's cultivation had not recovered properly because of the old Taoist negligence. Anyone who dared to touch Wang Sheng at this time would not have a good ending. Uncle Li might be a terrifying expert, but he was probably not enough to deal with the old Taoist. Uncle Li had obviously seen Wang Sheng too. He had come for Wang Sheng anyway. Otherwise, he would not have shown up at this time. However, Uncle Li had no intention of talking to Wang Sheng. He just smiled at Wang Sheng from afar, then turned around and left. The two beautiful twins naturally followed Uncle Li in a flirtatious manner. Of course, before they left, they did not forget to give Wang Sheng a bewitching smile that would make countless people jealous. Then, they followed Uncle Li unhurriedly. Old Taoist, does Uncle Li have a bottom line? Wang Sheng asked the old Taoist as he watched Uncle Li leave. Wang Sheng had not learned about this before. Now that Uncle Li had come to the capital, Wang Sheng had to consider the safety of the people around him. However, in Wang Sheng's opinion, a super expert like Uncle Li should have the demeanor of an expert, right? It's passable. Old Taoist Ling Su replied non-committally. It's not bad to be able to stay underground for 100 years because of a promise. However, who knows if there will be any changes after being underground for decades, or even centuries. Wang Sheng nodded and started to put up his guard. It was hard to guarantee that nothing would go wrong after decades of self-imprisonment. It was better to be safe than sorry. After returning to the Duke's mansion, Wang Sheng ordered everyone to be on high alert and sent someone to send a letter to the royal family. As the host, even if they did not stop the super expert from Carefree City, they should at least know about it, right? Next, Wang Sheng continued with his cultivation. Although Uncle Li had put a lot of pressure on him, Wang Sheng did not panic. He continued to do what he had to do and continued with his cultivation. If he panicked because of Uncle Li's appearance, then he would have fallen into Uncle Li's trap. In the end, Wang Sheng had just arranged for the Duke's mansion to be on guard when the twins came looking for him. What? You want tickets to the concert? Wang Sheng did not expect that the two assassins were not here to kill people, but to ask for tickets. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.